Chapter 865. Your Majesty, this is bad. The oceanic species has launched a large-scale invasion. They are heading toward the deep pit of the big crystal mine. This was a 7th grade battle saint. At this moment, this battle saint's face was filled with panic. His panic seemed to have affected everyone in the palace. Everyone's faces were also filled with panic. To the Serpent Men tribe, the invasion of the oceanic species was even more terrifying than the invasion of the so-called demons. This was because every time the oceanic species invaded, it was a huge disaster for the Serpent Men tribe. Yu Fu's face also revealed a trace of disbelief. Why would the oceanic species invade again? Ever since the Serpentine Sovereign entered the Endless Sea, the oceanic species has been peaceful for a long time. Why would they invade our Serpent Men tribe this time? However, even though Yu Fu felt that it was inconceivable, she wasn't too panicked. With the help of the crystals that were continuously excavated from the big crystal mine, the Serpent Men tribe had nurtured several supreme beings. They were more than enough to deal with this catastrophe. Yu Fu calmed down. However, after calming down, she felt that something was wrong. Wait, what did you say the oceanic species invaders were doing? Yu Fu seemed to have thought of something. She looked at the 7th grade battle saint and asked. That expert was taken aback at first. Then, he opened his mouth and said, "Those oceanic species are heading toward the big crystal mine that just collapsed." Big crystal mine? Another big crystal mine? Many people were taken aback. In the next moment, they sucked in a breath of cold air. The previous invasion of the oceanic species seemed to be related to the big crystal mine. Now it was happening again. What exactly was inside the big crystal mine that attracted the oceanic species experts? Bufang was also taken aback. During the previous invasion of the oceanic species, Bufang was also present. At that time, Bufang extracted Xiaopi from the crystal source of the big crystal mine. Now, the oceanic species were invading again? What was going on? One had to know that Xiaopi, as the shrimp ancestor, had already been extracted from the crystal source. This meant that the oceanic species would not come for the shrimp ancestor of the big crystal mine. If that was the case, then their objective was somewhat interesting. Bufang rubbed his chin and pondered for a while. Because of this matter, Yu Fu was no longer in the mood to reminisce with Bufang. Instead, she sent someone to bring Bufang to the room that had been arranged for him to rest. Yu Fu, on the other hand, followed many experts to the collapsed big crystal mine. This Yuan crystal mine was simply too sinister. Their Serpent Men tribe had lost 2 Supreme Being experts in there. Supreme Being experts were the peak strength of the Serpent Men tribe. Every one of them was extremely precious. The death of 2 of them at once was a heavy blow to the Naga tribe. As he watched Yu Fu leave, Bufang's eyes flickered. The one who led Bufang to his residence was a pretty serpent woman. She swayed her serpentine tail as she led Bufang to the room that had been arranged for him. If young master has any instructions, you can call this servant. The serpent woman slightly bowed to Bufang, then left the room. Anai Yen began to feel drowsy again. As soon as she entered the room, she closed her eyes and moved toward the bed. Bufang glanced at her and furrowed his brows. Looking at Anai Yen, who was soon snoring, he stood up. Bufang was really curious about the collapsed big crystal mine. No, it should be said that Bufang was curious about the aroma of food coming from the collapsed big crystal mine. A big crystal mine could actually emit the aroma of food? There was no chef cooking inside, and the aroma of the food could even entice one's mind. Could it be that the food had become a spirit? The curious Bufang naturally wanted to go and take a look. What if there was really a peerless delicacy in the big crystal mine? When he opened the door, the serpent woman's servant outside was instantly taken aback. "Take good care of the one sleeping inside," Bufang said to the serpent woman's servant. The servant hurriedly nodded and looked at Bufang's figure with a puzzled expression. Bufang's speed was really fast. His body slowly soared into the sky. The vermilion robe fluttered on his body, constantly making rustling noises. Bufang easily found the location of the big crystal mine. However, after looking at it, Bufang was somewhat bewildered. In the distance, monstrous waves were rolling over. The waves were tumbling, and there was a clamor on them. Countless sea spirit beasts were waving their weapons in the waves. What caught Bufang's attention the most was the leader of the oceanic species experts. It was actually a dazzling gold shrimpy. What was going on? Was that fellow Xiaopi? Bufang was bewildered. Then, he carefully looked over. Compared to Xiaopi's petite body, this gold shrimpy was much bigger and more violent. The aura on its body was very obvious. Although it was dazzling gold, its carapace was covered with fine patterns. It was a gold shrimpy at the almighty realm. However, it wasn't a purebred shrimpy like Xiaopi. Could it be a relative of Xiaopi? Of course, besides the gold shrimpy that attracted Bufang's attention, the most eye-catching thing was the huge pit that was situated 300 miles away from the Serpentmen tribe. That huge pit lay across the illusory spirit swamp. It was like a bottomless abyss, and it emitted endless mysteries. With so many oceanic species experts coming over, the waves they stirred up were surging and surging. Once the waves crashed down, it seemed as though they were going to drown the surroundings. Under the protection of many experts from the Serpentmen tribe, Yu Fu arrived several miles away from the collapsed pit. From here, she could see the shocking pit. She could also see the towering waves and thousands of members of the oceanic species behind it. This was an absolute disaster. All of the experts from the Serpentmen tribe were dumbfounded. The terrifying pressure that permeated the air caused everyone to be unable to move a single muscle. They had never felt such a feeling before. Facing the oceanic species experts, the supreme beings of the Serpentmen tribe didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They didn't even have the courage to soar into the sky. These supreme beings were clear that once they soared into the sky, they would die. The gold shrimpy in the lead was too terrifying. It was like a demon that had crawled out of the endless sea. Bufang stood proudly in the sky with his brows furrowed. If the oceanic species experts invaded, the Serpentmen tribe wouldn't be able to withstand such an attack. Just the towering waves alone were enough to destroy the entire Grand Serpentmen city. However, were the oceanic species experts really targeting the Grand Serpentmen city? Clearly it wasn't. Boom, boom. The huge wave suddenly crashed down, smashing towards the huge, pitch-black hole without stopping. With a loud explosion, endless seawater poured into the pitch-black pit like a waterfall. The oceanic species experts disdainfully glanced at the petrified experts of the Serpentmen tribe. Then, they rushed into the deep pit along with the waterfall. Along with excited roars. Boom, boom. The sound was ear-splitting, like thunder ringing in everyone's ears. The experts of the Serpentmen tribe were somewhat dumbfounded. This scene was simply too shocking. Was this the power of a true expert? The experts of the Serpentmen tribe couldn't see through the cultivation of the oceanic species experts. However, they knew that the realm above Supreme Being was the divine realm. Without a doubt, these oceanic species experts were divine realm existences. The entire southern region might not even have a single divine realm expert. However, this time there were so many divine realm experts. The endless sea was vast, and the number of experts there was also endless. It wasn't strange for there to be divine realm experts. In the past, the oceanic species invasions weren't very strong. After all, their sea was very weak. However, today's experts completely changed the views of the experts of the Serpentmen tribe. If the oceanic species wanted to annihilate the Serpentmen tribe, it would be a piece of cake. What was the goal of these oceanic species? What was so special about the crystal mine that attracted the oceanic species experts? Bufang's gaze was solid as he looked over. He could see the intoxicated expressions on the faces of the oceanic species experts who had entered the origin crystal pit. They seemed to be enchanted by some kind of aroma. According to Yu Fu, these sea race experts must have been mesmerized by the fragrance of the dishes wafting out from the crystal mine. Was there really a fragrance? Bufang clasped his hands behind his back. His face was expressionless, but his heart was filled with curiosity. He asked the system, but the system didn't reply to him. This made Bufang even more curious. It was something that could make the divine realm experts of the oceanic species experts feel greedy. The experts of the Serpent Men tribe also wanted to see it. However, that deep pit was too terrifying. They didn't dare to go down. Swoosh! All the seawater entered the deep pit, and the commotion came to an end. Around the pit, there were only a few soldiers of the oceanic species guarding with weapons in their hands. It was as if they were forbidding others from entering. In the distance, a rumbling sound rang out. Roars reached the sky, and nether energy filled the air. Above the illusory spirit swamp, the ruined prison's experts rode on the wave. The experts of the Serpent Men tribe sucked in a breath of cold air once again. Why were there so many demons? What was going on? When so many demons appeared, the experts of the Serpent Men tribe panicked. They thought that this was a plot of the demons, and they wanted to seize this chance to attack their tribe. However, soon, the experts of the Serpent Men tribe were stunned again. Because they realized that the demons' target wasn't them. Like the oceanic species experts, it was the deep pit in the crystal mine. The experts of the ruined prison charged towards the deep pit, bringing with them a sky-high amount of nether energy. The oceanic species experts roared, wanting to stop the ruined prison's experts. However, the number of ruined prison's experts was too many. They broke through the blockade of the oceanic species experts and jumped into the deep pit. These demons were the experts of the demon-scorpion race. Bufang had cooked the 4 great generals of the demon-scorpion race. Of course, he recognized them. All the experts of the ruined prison in the southern region were from the demon-scorpion race. That deep pit was like a bottomless pit, sucking in countless oceanic species experts and the ruined prison's experts. All the experts of the Serpent Men tribe were dumbstruck. Had this big crystal mine become a bottomless pit? All of a sudden, an expert of the Serpent Men tribe couldn't help but be curious. He wanted to step into the deep pit, but he was forced back by an oceanic species expert at Supremacy Realm. Get lost! His roar made the Serpent Men tribe's expert's face change between green and red. However, he sighed helplessly, retreating. Oceanic species. Demon-scorpion race. What attracted them in this big crystal mine? It can emit the aroma of dishes. It's really mysterious. Bufang's eyes brightened. A moment later, the long robe on his body fluttered. He took a step forward, slowly treading on the void as he headed toward the deep pit. Some experts of the Serpent Men tribe saw Bufang. Instantly, their eyes shrank. They recognized Bufang. He was the human who had chatted with the Serpentine sovereign in the imperial palace. What did this fellow want to do? The deep pit was sealed by the oceanic species and the demons. Did he want to go in? Some experts of the Serpent Men tribe smiled, waiting for the scene of Bufang being chased away. Yu Fu's face changed. She hurried to warn Bufang. In the distance, the experts of the oceanic species and the demon-scorpion race guarding the deep pit saw Bufang. They roared, wanting to chase him away. Bufang clasped one hand, raising his black and white bandaged arm. Buzz, a wave of green smoke twirled. A huge black wok suddenly appeared in his hand. Taking a step, he dashed like a meteor toward the deep pit. Chapter 866. Kid, what's wrong with you? The so-called scallop expert was simply too weak. The weight of the black turtle constellation wok wasn't something the demon-scorpion expert could resist. This smell, he furrowed his brows. This dish smelled so good that even he couldn't cook it. Was there anyone in the Hidden Dragon continent who was better at cooking than him? Tautai Restaurant, Valley of Gluttony. The scallop expert was scared out of his wits. Apparently, the system didn't want to tell Bufang the origin of this dish. Or, the system didn't know the origin of this dish. All of a sudden, Bufang's figure landed on the edge of the pit. Why wasn't that human killed by the oceanic species expert? However, the system kept silent for a long time. It didn't say anything. Bufang furrowed his brows. Yu Fu was a little bewildered. She didn't think that Owner Bu would become that strong. Her impression of Bufang was still the time when they were in the Light Wind Empire. At that time, Owner Bu wasn't that strong. The Almighty and the great ethereal realm experts had entered the deep pit to explore the secrets inside. They stayed behind to keep watch and prevent others from disturbing them. Then, Lord Go lay down, sleeping soundly. His aura surged, and chains emerged above his head. Yawning, Lord Go glanced at Hua, who was about to transform. He grunted, and the fat on his body shook. A strand of dog fur flew out, twirling around Hua. It turned into pure energy, entering Hua's body. The restaurant's door was closed. Usually it was the former. With the system's character, it was impossible that it didn't know the origin of this dish. Lord Dog was lying on the ground, snoring loudly. The fat on his body was trembling slightly. When the seven-colored sky-devouring python finished its seven-colored transformation, its power would reach a terrifying level, which ordinary people couldn't imagine. This scallop's color isn't bad. A soft sound echoed. Yu was a little skeptical about Xiaopi's condition. The strength of the demon scorpion race's experts was about the same. Many of the serpent men were waiting to see Bufang make a fool of himself. Hiss hiss hiss. What happened? One had to know that Bufang was facing a group of God-state warriors. This human actually dashed forward recklessly. Wasn't he courting death? This energy entangled him like silk and strands, drilling into his body from time to time. A strange thought surged into Yu's mind. Yu was receiving the message from Xiaopi. As the message was transmitted, her eyes became brighter and brighter. Once the color changed, it meant that Hua's strength would rise to another level. However, for Bufang, boom! Oh my God! Don't be anxious. Let's go. I'll bring you there. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? Yu's figure floated up and landed on the underworld ship. She patted Xiaopi's head and said, "This was the technique of a scallop expert." A single pearl was enough to penetrate a divine body realm expert who was stronger than him. A walk was enough to smash a god-state expert. Yu was bewildered, curiously looking at Xiaopi. It was a commander of the oceanic species. His body was huge, and he carried a huge scallop shell on his back. He glared at Bufang, who was dashing over. The Netherworld ship stopped beside Lord Dog. Nethery, on the other hand, was bored to death as she sat on the deck of the Netherworld ship, swinging her fair legs. How could the Earth prison's Acheron grass appear in the hidden dragon continent? Instantly, a wave of thick fragrance floated over, wrapping around Bufang's nose. Bufang couldn't help but sink into it. Bufang's eyes lit up. He single-handedly picked up the black turtle constellation walk, intending to continue walking towards the deep pit. Hua sat cross-legged beside Lord Go. Her eyes were closed, and energy constantly surged on her body. The demon scorpion race's expert was a little confused. Why did he only take the scallop shell and not the demon scorpions? Bufang was frightened and his pores shrank. How could this dish have this kind of fragrance? With a glance, he could see that the expert with the scallop shell wasn't ordinary. That aura was enough to shake the sky. The surrounding people were terrified. This person was too scary. He smashed someone's scallop shell, and now he wanted to take it away as an ingredient. Owner Bu wasn't here, and no one took care of his meals. Thus, he needed to rely on himself. Bufang wasn't clear about the Netherworld's 3 prisons, but in the hidden dragon continent, Bufang was already standing at the peak of the Valley of Gluttony. He was considered a special grade chef. Could it be that there was someone whose cooking skills were better than his? Exhaling deeply, Bufang couldn't help but feel a pressure in his heart. Ignoring the demon scorpion race and the oceanic species experts around, Bufang took a step forward, and his figure instantly fell. After all, the oceanic species experts were still the creatures of the hidden dragon continent, and their cultivation system was still the god body and divine soul. Bufang's mind flickered, grabbing the scallop shell and putting it into the system-dimensional bag. It kept falling. Today, someone had smashed it and turned it into an ingredient. It seemed like it was about to start the second round of color transformation. Xiaopi's legs moved unceasingly in the air. His figure was like a golden lightning bolt, constantly moving around. In just a blink of an eye, the scallop expert below roared crazily because he felt a flow of energy that made his heart palpitate. The demon scorpion race was an expert of the ruined prison. Their cultivation system was different from the hidden dragon continent. They were divided according to the great ethereal realm and the heavenly ethereal realm. Xiaopi was lying on Hua's head. It was also absorbing wisps of Hua's aura as it changed unceasingly. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. He had left the restaurant early in the morning. With his hands clasped behind his back, he walked to the neighboring restaurant. He also wanted to know the others' cooking skills. It turned out that the cooking skills in this world didn't have an end. He wasn't lonely. Then, Bufang's eyes fell on the bottomless pit in front of him. As someone who wanted to stand at the top of the food chain in this fantasy world, Bufang thought that the road to becoming the god of cooking wasn't that easy. Bufang couldn't believe it. The aroma of this dish was extremely fragrant, and it was getting thicker and thicker. That human was actually that strong? The black turtle constellation walk smashed down, and the scallop expert couldn't dodge. His figure changed, turning into a giant scallop shell. Thus, Bufang's heart became even more curious, and his originally calm heart was also rippling. He opened his mouth, and a white pearl shot out, shooting toward the black turtle constellation walk as fast as lightning. Acheron grass, his angry voice thundered like thunder. System, do you know what this dish is? All of a sudden, Bufang turned his head, looking at the giant scallop shell whose shell was smashed. His eyes gave the oceanic species experts goosebumps. After all, as long as it could transform into a 5-colored python, it was the same as entering the mature phase. A mature 7-colored sky-devouring python would be a real divine beast. Did it mean that Owner Bu's power had reached the divine realm? Moreover, the most important thing was the aroma of the dish from the crystal mine. It made him so curious. A moment later, Xiaopi squeaked, shooting up into the sky, spinning in the air. The Acheron grass of the Acheron River in Earth Prison? So, explosive shouts resounded from the surroundings of the crater. What did it mean? It meant that the oceanic species expert was smashed by a walk. The bottom of the pit seemed bottomless. Xiaopi's eyes rolled, then fell on Yu's shoulder. Bufang's figure was like a shooting star, dashing from the sky toward the bottomless pit. Eating too many demon scorpions was boring. The deep pit was surrounded by the oceanic species experts. Their auras weren't weak. Some were at the Supreme Being realm, and some were at the Divine Physique Echelon realm. Hua's golden dress had changed a little. It was now stained with red spots. The wok smashed hard on the scallop shell. The scallop shivered, unable to withstand the force, directly cracking. The vermilion robe on Bufang's body flapped in the wind as he dashed. Was he looking down on the demon scorpion race? The black turtle constellation wok turned into smoke and dispersed. Bufang's hair fluttered. How long had it been? The demon scorpion race's expert roared, but he was also subdued by Bufang's wok. To Bufang, who had experienced the pressure of a terrifying creature like the hell-blood illuminating dragon, this scallop expert's pressure was like child's play. Yu's beautiful brows furrowed, as though she didn't understand. After the netherworld ship disappeared, Lord Go, who was lying on the ground, slowly opened his eyes. He yawned, and the flesh on his dog face trembled. When the pearl hit the black turtle constellation wok, it was directly smashed, turning into pearl powder that filled the sky. As his vermilion robe was falling, it fluttered in the wind, constantly making rustling noises. Some people couldn't help but rub their eyes, feeling that it was so unbelievable. But today's owner Bu Fong took the smashed scallop shell, which terrified the oceanic species experts around. That scallop expert was their leader, and he was in charge of guarding this deep pit. Rumble ran to the southern region, that small place? Looks like the deep secret of the southern region is finally going to be revealed. Anyway, what does that have to do with me, Lord Go? I can see it, but I can't eat it. It's not even as good as Bufong's sweet and sour dragon ribs. Under the path understanding tree, Bufong's speed didn't slow down. The black turtle constellation walk spun, and he grabbed it with one hand. His black and white bandaged arm exerted force, smashing it down. Bufong's heart sank, and he began to ask the system. Bufong was a little familiar with this crystal mine. It was here that he had found Xiaopi. In the distance, the Serpent Men tribe's experts were bewildered. Their Serpentine Empress was just chatting with a God Realm expert? To the Demon Scorpion race and the Oceanic species experts, Bufong's appearance was a disturbance, and they had to stop him. However, today, the crystal mine had changed greatly, and Bufong even felt a strange aura. Bufong's figure fell straight down. His surroundings were pitch black, and his speed was extremely fast. Bufong's face was indifferent, and his speed was really fast. Of course, if the Demon Scorpion race's experts knew that Bufong had eaten too many demon scorpions, so he was too lazy to take it away, they would definitely not think that way. The Serpent Men tribe's experts were all intimidated by this scallop-like expert's aura. That human was so strong? In his hand was the black turtle constellation walk, which had an earthen yellow halo moving above it. Xiaopi, who was coiled on Hua's head, opened his compound eyes. His eyes rolled, as if there was a divine light flashing in them. Then, Yu's mind flickered, and the netherworld ship tore open the illusionary void with a ripping sound, drilling into it and disappearing. With a shrill cry, the white shell was smashed into pieces, covered in cracks. It meant that the chef who made this dish was much stronger than Bufong's cooking. The experts of the Serpent Men race had also figured it out. Putting away the scallop, Bufong glanced at the demon scorpion, who was also smashed to death. The corners of his mouth twitched and he chose to give up. A moment later, his eyes shot out a sharp light, staring at Xiaopi. Chapter 867. Bufong's figure fell into the bottomless, pitch-black pit and kept falling. It was so dark that one couldn't see the end of it. It was extremely terrifying. The vermilion robe fluttered, emitting a dazzling radiance. Very quickly, a wave of energy was produced, which caused Bufong's falling speed to gradually slow down. With a soft sound, Bufong's feet touched the ground. The ground was warm, as if a wave of heat was constantly gushing out from the ground, warming up Bufong's body. Casually looking around, Bufong's eyes suddenly showed a touch of surprise. This place was completely different from the crystal mine he had been to the last time. It was like a strange place. This place was underground, a huge cave that had been hollowed out. The cave ceiling was inlaid with all kinds of crystals, which were full of energy, bursting with brilliance. The place where Bufong landed was on a small path on the stone wall of the huge pit. That small path was narrow, allowing only one person to pass. This small path was attached to the stone wall, winding down, and one couldn't see the end with a glance. And outside the cliff was an endless abyss, so deep that one couldn't see the bottom. It was like the mouth of a demon that was choosing people to swallow. The surroundings were quiet. Those oceanic species experts and demon scorpion experts had stepped into this deep pit, but their figures had disappeared. This was a little strange. However, Bufong didn't pay too much attention to it. His nose twitched slightly, and the fragrance of the dishes in the air continued to tickle his taste buds. While he was amazed in his heart, he was also incomparably curious. Why would there be such a fragrance in this abyss like mine? What kind of secret was hidden in there? Bufang clasped his hands, stepping on that narrow path, continuously walking down. His speed wasn't considered fast or slow, but that small path seemed to have no end. After walking for a long time, he still hadn't reached the end. Bufang was a little annoyed as he walked, because he felt as if he had been repeating the same thing. Rumble. Bufang stopped in his tracks. The gravel rolled down from the steep cliff. The sound of it falling was as if it was swallowed up without a sound. This was enough to show that the pit was truly bottomless. It seemed a little strange. Bufang looked around. But other than pitch black, there was only pitch black. Bufang's psychic energy surged out, stirring up turbulent waves in his spirit sea. However, his mental power, which had always been successful, suffered a heavy blow this time. It was unable to spread out at all. It was as if it was being suppressed by a mysterious power. This caused Bufang's heart to involuntarily tighten. He looked at the bottomless abyss, and then at the endless path. The corners of Bufang's mouth involuntarily curled up, revealing a trace of a smile. The next moment, Bufang withdrew the mental energy in his spirit sea, turned around, and strode toward the sky above the endless abyss. One step, the scene in front of Bufang suddenly changed. All of the darkness had completely faded away. What was reflected in his eyes was the luster of the resplendent Yuan Jing. It was so beautiful that it was incomparably gorgeous. It illuminated the entire cave. That's right. It was a cave. Bufang opened his eyes, finding that he was actually in a cave. And inside the cave, besides Bufang, there were many oceanic species and demon scorpion races experts with their eyes closed, breathing steadily. They seemed to be immersed in the illusion that they had just experienced, unable to extricate themselves. Unless they had the courage to take a step toward the sky above the abyss. There were not many oceanic species experts around, and there were only a few demon scorpion races experts. Moreover, these people were not strong. Most of them were at the divine physique echelon realm, and there were even a few divine soul realm existences. Perhaps the almighty experts had already seen through the illusion and walked out of the cave. The aroma of food lingering in the air was still so thick. Bufang did not hesitate. He did not care about the oceanic species and demon scorpion races experts who were still immersed in the illusion. Instead, he walked toward the outside of the cave. Outside the cave, it was actually another world. In the sky, there seemed to be lava rolling, and from time to time, there were rumbling noises. The lava was so bright that it seemed to light up the entire world. Bufang clasped his hands, walking out. The ground was a little dry. It was obvious that this world's temperature was a little hot. Walking out of the valley, there was a giant stone bridge not far from him. That stone bridge was naturally formed, as if it was one with the two mountains. On the stone bridge, there were many sharp stone spikes growing out. Those stone spikes were exceptionally sharp. On the stone bridge, there were many corpses lying there. Each corpse had been pierced by the stone spike. Some of the corpses were already withered, and some only had white bones left. This world seemed to be emitting a thick aura of death. Bufang's heart instantly became vigilant. The aroma of the food in the air was getting thicker, making Bufang involuntarily lick his mouth, feeling a little hungry. However, Bufang didn't plan to cook immediately. Instead, he wanted to cross the stone bridge first. Among the corpses on the stone bridge, there were oceanic species experts, demon scorpion experts, and outsiders who had been dead for an unknown number of years. Why is there a human here? Some oceanic species experts woke up from the illusion. They also walked out of the valley, just in time to see Bufang in the distance. Instantly, they let out an angry roar. Bufang turned around to look at this group of people. Why couldn't there be a human here? Too lazy to care about these oceanic species experts, Bufang took a step forward, his figure jumping onto the stone bridge. As soon as he entered the stone bridge, a wave of terrifying pressure instantly acted on Bufang's body. There was a cracking sound. The stone bridge on the ground wiggled for a while. Instantly, many stone pillars burst out from it, wanting to pierce through Bufang. Those experts might have died like that. Bufang's mind flickered. His figure slightly moved to the side, dodging the stone thorns. However, these stone thorns were really fast. One after another, Bufang didn't even have a chance to catch his breath. He kept dodging. His figure seemed to become illusory. In the distance, the oceanic species experts were dumbfounded. This speed was a little scary. It should be known that those who could walk out first were the Divine Soul Realm oceanic species experts with strong mental energy. At this moment, they all felt a little frightened. It was true that Bufang's actions were too shocking. This human is so strong. These stone thorns are so fast. As long as he gets hit by one, his rhythm will be messed up. His whole body will be pierced. This stone bridge is the first test? It feels so scary. The oceanic species experts were dumbfounded. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. Bufang released his mental force, and he quickly grasped the rhythm of the battle. His figure was like a graceful butterfly, constantly jumping among the ferocious stone thorns. The tip of his foot lightly tapped on a stone pillar as Bufang flew out and walked off the stone bridge. It was actually not difficult to cross this stone bridge. As long as one's mental power was highly concentrated, it would be possible. Of course, if one's mental strength was not strong enough, it would be easy to be stabbed to death. Those stone thorns seemed to be able to steal away one's soul. If a Divine Soul Realm expert was stabbed to death, it would be difficult for their remnant soul to escape. Bufang walked across the stone bridge, which was beyond the expectations of those oceanic species experts. The oceanic species experts all looked at each other in dismay. That human didn't look strong, but he was able to pass. That meant they should be able to pass as well. The oceanic species experts were very confident about this. However, he was just at the Divine Soul Realm with a one-step soul ladder. They had the strength of several steps of the Divine Soul Realm. Of course, they were more confident. Thus, these oceanic species experts stepped onto the stone bridge. But as soon as they stepped inside, they regretted it. Even though their minds were already stretched taut, the instant they stepped onto the stone bridge, their minds were stretched to the extreme. The oceanic species expert's eyes turned red. His figure moved rapidly as he dodged the stone spikes. This kind of feeling almost made them collapse. However, if Bufang could do it, they could definitely do it too. They had always believed that. Regarding this, Bufang was a little surprised. His mental force was seriously incompatible with his true energy cultivation. Even so, he had to use a lot of strength to cross this stone bridge. These oceanic species experts were actually not dead yet. The fragrance of food wafted through the air. Bufang sniffed. He was actually a little hungry. He looked at the oceanic species experts and was too lazy to leave. Green smoke curled around his hand. Instantly, the black turtle constellation walk floated out, appearing in his hand. With a thud, the black turtle constellation walk hit the ground. The ground shook. In the distance, the oceanic species experts, who were moving rapidly, felt their hearts shrink. They stuck out their tongues in exhaustion. What did this human want to do? Why did he take out a walk on the other side of the bridge? At this moment, their minds were extremely short of oxygen. Only a strand of willpower was left, slowly moving towards the other side of the bridge. With a wave of his hand, he took out the giant scallop he had caught at the entrance of the big pit. That scallop's shell was broken, revealing the scallop meat inside. Bufang was very satisfied with this scallop. As soon as the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared, a golden light flashed. The broken scallop shell was directly cut into pieces by Bufang. He gouged out the scallop meat. Bufang couldn't help but be surprised when he saw the huge scallop meat. The knife light flashed again, cutting off a small piece of scallop meat. Using the meteor knife skill, the knife light flashed like a meteor, cutting the scallop meat into small pieces. Opening his mouth, he spat out the heaven and earth obsidian flame. Heating the wok, adding oil. Sizzle! The temperature in the black turtle constellation wok rose. After wiping the water on his hands, Bufang was ready to cook. First, he poured the seasoning he had prepared into the wok. Along with the sizzling sound and the sound of the ingredients being stir-fried, an aroma wafted out. On the stone bridge, those oceanic species experts were bewildered. This guy was poisonous. They were concentrating on dodging the rock thorns, but you were cooking over there. Moreover, the ingredients he used were the oceanic species experts. This, damn it, the aroma wafted, lingering. It wasn't very strong, and compared to the aroma of the dishes that lingered around, it wasn't so tempting. However, it was just a side dish. Bufang used his palm to push the scallop meat into the wok. As soon as the meat entered the wok, smoke rose. Then, there was the rich aroma of seafood being stir-fried. It was very fragrant. Bufang held the black turtle constellation wok in one hand and a ladle in the other, stirring the ingredients in the air. Sizzle! Sizzle! The sizzling sound and steam constantly surged. Taking the white jade porcelain jar, he opened the lid and waved the jar. Instantly, clear wine spilled out. As the wine entered the wok, the aroma of wine and meat lingered. Half a ladle of abyssal chili sauce was poured into the wok, making the color of the dish even more beautiful. After shaking the wok for a while, all the ingredients began to taste. Finally, Bufang poured the dish into the blue and white porcelain plate he had prepared. The pieces of scallop meat were still quivering. The color was bright, and the aroma assailed their nostrils. Just by smelling it, it increased people's appetite. The oceanic species experts were bewildered once again. Bufang poured the abyssal chili sauce into the black turtle constellation wok. The spicy aroma, wrapped in the aroma, wafted toward the oceanic species experts. That aroma made people's noses feel a little numb, itchy and hot. The most important thing was that tempting aroma. There was also the scent of scallop. Damn it! What a bastard! Bufang was a little hungry. He cooked a portion of dragon blood rice, then carried the rice and dishes, sitting cross-legged at the exit of the stone bridge. He watched with interest as the oceanic species experts tried their best to move. Using his chopsticks, he picked up a piece of scallop meat, which had steam curling around it. Then, Bufang looked at the oceanic species experts, whose eyes were bloodshot. Then, he stuffed the scallop meat into his mouth. His teeth bit down and the meat juices splashed. The oceanic species experts, who were staring at Bufang, felt their minds crumble. They staggered, their bodies stiffening. Chapter 868. Swoosh! Swoosh! Many stone spikes shot out from the stone bridge. Their speed was extremely fast, piercing through flesh. Blood splashed everywhere. Miserable screams resounded. The oceanic species experts were instantly pierced through one by one. The stone spikes had a strange suction force, sucking away all their blood. Moreover, the remnant souls of the oceanic species experts, who wanted to escape, were all swallowed up. This stone bridge that spanned across the two places was like a greedy beast, absorbing the oceanic species experts' blood and remnant souls. Bufang shoved the dragon blood rice into his mouth and picked up a piece of fragrant fried scallop meat. The texture was excellent and the aroma burst forth. Pouring a mouthful of Frost Blaze Path Understanding brew into his mouth, that feeling was even more delicious. Bufang looked at the oceanic species experts, who had turned into corpses. However, the essence, energy, and soul in their corpses had all disappeared. To be honest, those oceanic species experts were not bad ingredient. It was a pity that without their essence, energy, and soul, even the best ingredients became dregs. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Bufang stood up from the ground. Putting away the black turtle constellation wok and kitchen knife, Bufang continued to walk forward. Amethyst Elder's figure dashed forward rapidly. He was like a shooting star that zoomed across the sky. His speed was so fast that it was shocking. Even the air was pressuring, making it rumble. His figure crossed the 100,000 mountains, quickly arriving at the Light Wind Empire. Several thousand meters above the imperial city, a fine crack suddenly appeared, torn open by someone. A figure darted out from it and floated in the air. Amethyst Elder's hair was like steel needles that pierced through the air, creating a hole in it. He clasped his hands, his eyes like lightning. In an instant, he turned into a jet of light, descending into the Light Wind Empire. He could feel the heavenly star-catcher disk's aura here. He continued to walk, turning left and right on the long, bustling street. Finally, he reached a deep alley. Stepping into the alleyway, the Amethyst Elder arrived in front of the only restaurant in the alleyway. Seeing this restaurant, Amethyst Elder's eyes involuntarily shrank. His mind was shaken, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. He realized that this restaurant was exactly the same as the one he had seen in the Valley of Gluttony. How could there be identical restaurants in these two places? The restaurant's door was open. People were coming and going in the restaurant. It was very lively. Amethyst Elder narrowed his eyes, feeling a little curious as he stepped into the restaurant. As he sat on the chair, a pretty maid came over and asked him what he wanted to order. Amethyst Elder looked at the menu without changing his expression. He wanted to see what was so special about this mysterious restaurant. Thus, after Amethyst Elder ordered a dish, he began to size up the entire restaurant. To be honest, there was nothing special about this restaurant. However, when Amethyst Elder's consciousness spread out, he shockingly discovered that his mental energy was actually unable to enter the kitchen. How was this possible? Amethyst Elder's current cultivation had already reached an unfathomable level. After fusing with the demon eye of the demon lord of the Demon Eye clan, Amethyst Elder's cultivation progress was very terrifying. But even so, he was still unable to see through in kitchen. After being surprised for a while, a fragrant aroma wafted out of the kitchen. Ouyang Xiaoyi brought the dishes over for Amethyst Elder. Amethyst Elder gave Ouyang Xiaoyi a deep look, then a deep look at the kitchen. Then, he picked up his chopsticks, slowly tasting the food. This food did not give him much experience. He could only say that it was okay. After all, Amethyst Elder was someone who had eaten the Valley of Gluttony's glutton god's banquet. He had tasted the real delicacies. Ouyang Xiaoyi was also a little curious about this purple-haired man. However, when she came back to her senses, she was shocked to find that the purple-haired man's seat was empty. That person had disappeared a long time ago. There was only a bag of crystals left on the table as money for the meal. The long robe on Amethyst Elder's body fluttered as he dashed in the air. He sensed the heavenly star-catcher disk's aura, continuing to walk in the air. He was just curious about that restaurant, so he went in to eat. After eating, he continued with his business, to destroy the heavenly star-catcher disk. Inside the big crystal mine, Bufang clasped his hands, continuing to walk. The ground was warm, and a scalding feeling spread out from the ground. The lava in the sky was still boiling. Bufang held a skewer of grilled scallop meat in his hand as he continued to walk. While eating, he sniffed the aroma of the food in the air. That aroma was really fragrant. Even if he smelled it for a long time, he would not feel bored. The more he walked, the more surprised Bufang became. That was because he found that the energy in the air was getting thicker and thicker. This was the southern region, but the heaven and earth spirit energy deep underground was unexpectedly thick. It seemed strange. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the distance there seemed to be a violent tremor. Bufang hurriedly stuffed the scallop meat in his hand into his mouth. His mouth was greasy, and he hastened to the place where the battle was happening. Shortly after, He arrived, and he also found out the reason for the battle. It was a battle between experts. They were experts from the oceanic species and the demon scorpion race. Both of them had transformed into their true bodies, fighting in that empty space. Sand and stones flew everywhere, and rocks and stones flew everywhere. However, in that wreckage there was a dazzling light that attracted people's eyes. Bufang chewed. His eyes focused, looking over. He discovered that the light was actually a token made of high-quality yuan crystal. The oceanic species experts and the demon scorpion race's experts seemed to be fighting for that token. A giant crab and a giant demon scorpion were having a life-and-death battle. It looked a little funny. Bufang watched from afar, not in a hurry to make a move. Both of them were existences in the divine soul realm that were close to the almighty realm. They were not weaker than Xie He, the demon scorpion race's leader, who had been crippled by Bufang. When these two giant creatures fought, the commotion was not small. The oceanic species crab wasn't big. It was a little smaller than the demon scorpion. The demon scorpion was more than 3 meters tall, but the crab was only a meter big. Of course, it didn't include the two giant crab pincers. When the crab pincers moved, it was much more shocking than the demon scorpion's pincers. Bufang watched with interest. The crab and the demon scorpion seemed to be evenly matched. It was hard to tell who would win in a short time. Bufang saw the two of them fighting so passionately, so he didn't disturb them. After all, they both had pincers. Let them fight each other. The vermilion robe fluttered. Bufang slowly walked out, walking toward the token. The crab and the demon scorpion fought until their eyes were red, but they didn't find Bufang. Bufang leisurely walked through the area where the two giant creatures were fighting, arriving in front of the token. The light of the token was very warm, and there seemed to be some strange symbols moving on it. Bufang furrowed his brows. Everything in this big pit was a little mysterious, which made Bufang feel a little strange. Looking at the demon scorpion and the crab, who were still fighting in full swing, Bufang reached out his hand, grabbing the token. The moment he touched the token, a wave of mysterious information was transmitted from the token, quickly entering Bufang's head. Bufang's eyes flickered with light. It was like a map was appearing in his head. Bufang felt his mind travel 10,000 miles in just a blink, crossing the endless distance to see far away. There was a giant lake there. The lake water was blood-red, slightly rippling. And, in the middle of the lake, there was a giant bronze palace. The bronze palace stopped. In front of it, there were two giant, pitch-black ancient ships. Swoosh. Everything in front of him disappeared. Bufang's mind returned, a little bewildered. This token was the key. He was sure that what he had just seen was a scene from somewhere in this world. However, why did the bronze palace and the two pitch-black ancient ships look so familiar? Bufang seemed to remember where he had seen these things. He frowned, but his ears didn't hear the noise of the battle anymore. Bufang was bewildered. The shadow covered his body. Swoosh. At this moment the air cracked. A scorpion tail pierced toward Bufang's position at high speed. Ant-like human. You dare to fish in troubled waters. Die. The giant demon scorpion and the crab stopped fighting at the same time. Their cold eyes gazed at Bufang. They were fighting to compete for the token to get the qualification. However, in the middle of the battle, a reckless human tried to steal the token. This was unforgivable. Humans are indeed treacherous and cunning. I must kill him. The giant oceanic species crab opened and closed its mouth, roaring angrily. Boom! Bufang's figure blurred, turning into a shadow and disappearing from his spot. Before the shadow could disperse, the demon scorpion's tail pierced through it and tore it apart. The ground was smashed, creating a deep hole. Bufang landed in the distance, holding a jade talisman in his hand. His eyes lifted, indifferently looking at the giant crab and the demon scorpion. Weren't these two fellows fighting so excitedly just now? Why did they stop at the same time? They turned to deal with him. You dare to dodge? The demon scorpion roared. Brother Crab, use your pincers to smash that human, the demon scorpion said. Brother Scorpion, you're right. We must erase this despicable human. The long legs of the oceanic species crab quickly swept across the ground. In the next instant, its body flew horizontally, and its two huge pincers opened, smashing down on Bufang's position. The crab and the demon scorpion seemed to appreciate each other. Bufang was a little speechless. Did those two come here to make fun of him? Bufang didn't want to waste time. The appearance of the Bronze Palace gave Bufang a strange and familiar feeling. Thus, he directly took out the dragon bone kitchen knife. True energy burst out, entering the dragon bone kitchen knife. A dragon roar soared up into the sky, and the dragon's might expanded. The dragon bone kitchen knife enlarged, and Bufang carried it on his shoulder. Holding the knife with both hands, Bufang took a deep breath, dashing away. He dashed toward the giant crab and the demon scorpion. The gold dragon's roar shook the sky. The oceanic species crab's body shook, and the demon scorpion's barbed tail also shook. They were somewhat suppressed. Their lantern-like eyes looked at Bufang in fear. Knife energy crisscrossed, unceasingly stacking, turning into a terrifying blade. It was unstoppable. Swish! The demon scorpion's body was cut in half. Its shell couldn't resist the sharp dragon bone kitchen knife and the Overlord 13 blades. The oceanic species crab was bewildered. Looking at the demon scorpion that was cut in half, its pincers shivered. Humans nowadays, are they all so savage? Too terrifying. Rumble! Rumble! Without hesitation, the oceanic species crab's 8 legs flew away, dashing away. Since he could cut the demon scorpion with one blade, that human could also cut him with one blade. If he didn't run away now, when would he? Brother Scorpion, I'll never see you again. Bufang looked at the oceanic species crab, the corners of his mouth twitching. What a lively crab! It's definitely very sturdy. It's a good ingredient. Bufang grinned. A moment later, he put the token into the system-dimensional bag, carried the dragon bone kitchen knife, and chased after the giant crab. Hairy crab, don't run! Steamed hairy crab. It was the most delicious thing. Chapter 869. Lava was rolling in the sky, bubbling from time to time. On the brown land, smoke and dust were rolling. A giant crab was running crazily. It was so fast. In just a blink of an eye, it had dashed far away. Behind the crab was a young man carrying a giant golden kitchen knife. The young man was running crazily, chasing after the big crab. Eventually, Bufang couldn't catch up with the crab. The crab was running crazily fast. It was like a lightning bolt crossing the plain. Although Bufang had pushed his speed to the max, his true energy cultivation base was just at the divine soul realm with a one-step soul ladder. He could only watch the big crab run away. Watching the billowing smoke and dust dissipate, Bufang helplessly curled his lip. He was still thinking that he would be able to improve his meal today, but in the end, he actually let the crab escape. He wanted to give the crab an unprecedented experience. Putting away the dragon bone kitchen knife, Bufang's hand glowed. Instantly, a jade token appeared in his hand. It was the token that the big crab and the demon scorpion had just fought for. Mysterious patterns were carved on it. Moreover, Bufang could feel the familiar bronze palace on it. If he remembered correctly, the last time he saw this bronze palace was on the Acheron River in Earth Prison. At that time, the blood mist was heavy. On the Acheron River, 2 pitch-black ancient ships were pulling a bronze palace. The bronze palace and the black ancient ship were exactly the same as the one Bufang had seen in the illusion. He took a deep breath. Bufang lifted his head to look at the distance. If he wasn't wrong, this jade token was the key to unlocking the secret of this big pit. And there should be a lot of jade tokens. Thus, Bufang regrouped and resumed his journey, walking on the brown, earthy wasteland. The wasteland was really dry. The temperature was really high and the air was really dry. When he stepped on it, the rubble and the soles of his shoes squeaked, which made people's scalps numb. The density of the spiritual energy in this world was very high, which was quite different from the southern border. According to the records on the Jade Token, the pool in Bufang's memory should be at the end of this wasteland. His main goal now was to find that pool. Along the way, Bufang discovered that this world was not devoid of life. Occasionally, one could see long snakes crawling on the ground of the wasteland. Apart from the long snakes, there were also some spirit beasts galloping past occasionally, stirring up a cloud of dust. Bufang took out a long robe from the system-dimensional bag and put it on to protect himself from the wind and sand. The sandstorm billowed, swirling up dust all over the sky. Bufang squatted down and looked at the brown and white flower on the ground. When he plucked the flower, the ground trembled and cracked. A huge bloody mouth appeared, biting towards Bufang as if it wanted to devour Bufang completely. Obviously, this flower was a trap. Bufang was a little bewildered. His body instantly soared up into the sky, the black turtle constellation walk emerging, smashing down. Boom! The owner of the bloody mouth also soared up into the sky. Like a spring, he leaped into the air. This was a spirit beast that looked like a pangolin, but it was different from a pangolin. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth. The black turtle constellation walk smashed down. That spirit beast was instantly smashed, its body falling to the ground with a loud bang. Bufang's figure floated, calmly looking at this spirit beast. He waved his left hand. Golden light twisted, and the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. On the dragon bone kitchen knife light flashed, and dragon might diffuse. That spirit beast felt the dragon might, instantly shivering on the ground, not moving an inch. The pressure of the golden dragon made this spirit beast tremble from the depths of its blood. Using a flower as bait to hunt. You're a little smart. Unfortunately, as an ingredient you're still not good enough. I happen to lack a ride, so I'll use you. Bufang hovered in the sky, speaking calmly. A moment later, his body descended, stepping on the back of that pangolin-like spirit beast. That spirit beast was really smart. It seemed to understand Bufang's meaning. It would be best if it could survive. Instantly, it stretched its limbs and started to run. This spirit beast was really fast, as though it had become one with the rock. It dashed away at an extremely fast speed. Bufang sat cross-legged on it, the robe draped over his body fluttering in the howling wind. This spirit beast was really familiar with the plain. Shortly, Bufang saw the end of the plain. There was a continuous mountain range. Swish, swish. Suddenly, seawater appeared on the ground around him. The spirit beast stepped on it, splashing water everywhere. However, it didn't stop him from running. Feeling the continuous seawater around him, Bufang furrowed his brows. He raised his hand, pressing on the spirit beast's head. The spirit beast gradually slowed down, standing on the water. How could there be so much seawater here? Bufang was puzzled. Could it be that the oceanic species experts were also here? After thinking about it, Bufang felt that it was reasonable. Leaping off the spirit beast's back, Bufang's feet were covered with a layer of true energy. Stepping on the seawater, he didn't sink. Let's go. Since you've done well, I'll let you go. Bufang patted the spirit beast's head. The scales on the spirit beast's body slightly opened up. Then, its figure madly dashed out. Without the slightest reluctance, it disappeared in a flash. Bufang turned his head, looking at the vast ocean around him. His true energy dispersed, and his body slowly sank. Soon, he reached the bottom. Although there was seawater around him, it wasn't very deep. Floating up again, Bufang walked toward the distance. There was a continuous mountain range, and the spirit energy was unceasingly soaring. Apparently, he had reached his destination. All of a sudden, Bufang halted his steps. He saw a giant figure standing in the distance. It was a golden mantis shrimp, and its carapace radiated a dazzling gold light. The mantis shrimp stood there, not moving forward. The seawater had also spread around him. As if it had sensed someone behind it, the golden mantis shrimp turned around. Its eyes, which seemed to be real, shot over. At this moment, a terrifying pressure burst out. That mantis shrimp was actually an almighty realm mantis shrimp. Apparently, the golden mantis shrimp didn't expect to see a human here. That was because the illusion and the stone bridge at the entrance had stopped many oceanic species' divine soul realm expert. That human was so weak. How did he get here? Indifferently looking at that human, the golden mantis shrimp lost interest. It turned its head around, its compound eyes rolling as it looked into the distance. It was standing on a cliff, and below the cliff was a massive valley. The valley was surrounded by mountains, and the valley was deep and empty. It was different from the brown soil they had seen along the way. This valley was filled with greenery, and many towering trees reached the sky. Is this the secret realm my grandfather has been searching for? To find the secret to transcend this world? The golden mantis shrimp spoke human language. Bufang was a little surprised. They were both mantis shrimps, but why was the gap between them so big? Buzz, a wave of gold light shot out. Then, the golden mantis shrimp's body began to change. Shortly after, it turned into a human figure. Bufang's eyes focused. He found that the mantis shrimp had turned into a handsome young man, who was wearing golden armor and had a head full of blonde hair. How could the gap between two shrimps be so big? His Xiaopi only knew how to sleep. Not only could this mantis shrimp talk, but it could also transform. As if he had sensed Bufang's surprised gaze, the blonde young man turned his head, looking at Bufang. Human, if you know what's good for you, leave. This isn't a place you should be in. With your power, the things here aren't something you can covet, the blonde young man said calmly. His voice was full of arrogance and disdain. In his eyes, Bufang's power was too weak, so weak that he wasn't interested in him at all. He thought that he should find the chance his grandfather had been searching for first. The chance that his grandfather, who was almost invincible in the endless sea, had been searching for that year. His grandfather hadn't gotten it. Now, he must get it, even if it was for his grandfather. Bufang didn't seem to understand the mantis shrimp's sense of superiority. He took a step onto the precipitous cliff, then his figure jumped down from high above. The seawater in the sky followed his figure, as if it had turned into a water blanket, carrying his body as he moved forward unceasingly. It was indeed quite cool. The water blanket condensed by the seawater bloomed brilliantly under the illumination of the lava. It was really dazzling and cool. The blonde young man's golden hair fluttered in the air, which made him look even more elegant. Clasping his hands, he stepped on the water blanket. All of a sudden, the young man's face instantly froze. Bufang's eyes also focused. Swoosh! The water blanket that covered the sky instantly lost control, pouring down like a heavy rain. The young man's elegant figure couldn't fly anymore. With a swoosh, he fell from the sky, falling into the valley. This sudden scene scared the blonde young man, his face full of fear. His appearance of baring his fangs and brandishing his claws was somewhat comical. The corners of Bufang's mouth convulsed. He released his mental power and immediately sensed a strange fluctuation in the air. This valley forbade flying. Looking at the cliff that was dozens of feet high, the falling mantis shrimp wouldn't have a good ending. But so what? The mantis shrimp dared to show off in front of him. It was already good enough that he didn't cook it and eat it. Bufang took a deep breath, then quickly dashed out. When he reached the edge of the cliff, he stepped on it. With a swoosh, Bufang's figure dashed out. The slender and skinny figure spun in the air, then directly fell to the ground. He seemed to turn into a jet of light. The vermilion robe fluttered. The velvet rope that tied his hair was broken, scattering his hair in the wind. Boom! A loud explosion echoed. When Bufang's figure landed on the ground caved in because of the tremendous force. The young man, who was the gold mantis shrimp, coughed and crawled up from the ground. He looked at Bufang awkwardly. Then, he resumed his arrogant and cold look. Human, I'm the third prince of the gold shrimp tribe in the endless sea. You can't tell anyone about what happened today. Otherwise, you will have a miserable end. The blond man's eyes focused, coldly looking at Bufang. I used to throw a gold mantis shrimp into the pot. I wonder what's the relationship between that little fellow and you? Bufang looked at the young man, the corners of his mouth rising as he asked. Naturally, Bufang didn't care about the latter's threat. The young man was bewildered. Then, he was enraged. This guy dared to throw a member of the gold shrimp tribe into the pot? He had a lot of guts. After saying that, Bufang didn't pay attention to the young man anymore. His eyes shifted to the bronze palace, which gradually appeared in the distance. Instantly, his eyes became serious. However, just as Bufang took a few steps forward, a voice suddenly rang out. All of a sudden, an explosion rang out in the sky. There was a loud bang. A terrifying shockwave spread out in all directions. A moment later, a giant demon scorpion appeared, its scarlet eyes twinkling. Chapter 870. Light Wind Empire. A wave of rolling dark clouds shrouded over from afar in an instant. The nether energy covered the sky. On the city walls, the guards of the imperial city tensed up. They shivered as they looked at the haze that was constantly shrouding them. Their eyes were filled with fear. Because this scene reminded him of a familiar scene. Back then, when the demons invaded, it was also an apocalyptic scene. It wasn't even as scary as this. The dark clouds in the sky were like the fangs of the demons. They kept rolling, bringing with them a suffocating aura. On the vast plains outside the capital, there was an army of fiend demons that didn't have a lot of people, but it was an army that made people feel incomparably terrifying. Some of the guards recalled the nightmarish scene, and their legs went soft. The city gates creaked as they were slowly lifted. Finally, they closed. The imperial city was completely sealed. In the face of this demon army, everyone felt a wave of helplessness. Xiao Ming's face was solemn as he stepped on the city walls. His injuries hadn't healed yet, but as the guardian of the imperial city, he had to stand up at this critical moment. In fact, he felt a little hopeless. The appearance of these demons made him understand the meaning of fear. If it weren't for Owner Boo's sudden return, the Light Wind Empire would have been destroyed. However, now, the demons were invading again, but Owner Boo was nowhere to be found. How could they resist these demons? Or what could they use to resist these demons? Fong Fong's little store. Suddenly, the void was torn apart. In the next instant, a pitch-black netherworld ship slowly sailed out. With a boom, the pitch-black netherworld ship landed in front of Fong Fong's little store. Many people who were queuing up were shocked by the sudden appearance of the ship. In the restaurant, Ouyang Xiaoi curiously came out. When she saw this ship, she was slightly surprised. However, when she saw the golden shrimpy crawling out of the hole, her eyes lit up. It's Xiaopi! It's Owner Boo's Xiaopi! Ouyang Xiaoi cried out in surprise. Xiaopi seemed to have also discovered Ouyang Xiaoi. With a swoosh, he dashed out and circled around Ouyang Xiaoi. Many people in the restaurant were amazed. He had never seen a golden mantis shrimp before. Xiao Xiaolong also came out of the kitchen with a happy expression on his face. Xiaopi had stayed in Fong Fong's little store before, so they weren't unfamiliar with Xiaopi. After all, a golden mantis shrimp would leave a deep impression on anyone. Xiaopi landed on Ouyang Xiaoi's head and squeaked. Ouyang Xiaoi was delighted. Are you here for Owner Boo? Ouyang Xiaoi asked with a smile. It's a pity Owner Boo isn't in the restaurant. I think he went to the Oracle sect. Ouyang Xiaoi answered her own question. Xiaopi's compound eyes rolled around. Suddenly, everyone's eyes were glued to him. That's because there was a graceful silhouette slowly walking out from the pitch-black ancient ship. That fiery figure, that stunning face, and especially that perfectly straight and fair pair of beautiful legs that could almost steal one's soul, made everyone dumbfounded. This person seemed to have walked out of a painting. Her beauty was unbelievably beautiful. Ouyang Xiaoyi, who had a mantis shrimp on her head, was slightly bewildered. In front of Nethery's beautiful face, this little girl felt a little inferior. This woman was too cold and aloof. She was also beautiful, not less than you. However, in front of her, Ouyang Xiaoyi didn't feel inferior. She believed that when she grew up, she would be as beautiful as big sister Ni Yen. You retrieved the netherworld ship, calmly looking at Xiaopi, who was lying on Ouyang Xiaoyi's head. Her delicate hand rose, gently hooking. Xiaopi instantly turned into a jet of light, lying on Yu's shoulder. "Where's Bu Fong?" Yu asked calmly. "Bu." "Owner Bu went out," Ouyang Xiaoyi stammered. Taking a step forward, Yu swayed her body as she entered the restaurant. The familiar decorations and the familiar atmosphere made Nethery's eyes flash with curiosity. Did all of Bu Fong's restaurants have the same style? "Bu Fong isn't here? Seems like we have to move on," Yu said. "Yu, why are you looking for Owner Bu?" Ouyang Xiaoyi gathered her courage and asked. Yu was bewildered. Her head tilted, and her long black hair fell. "Oh, I'm not looking for him. It's this little guy. I'm looking for him." Yu rubbed Xiaopi's head, her face expressionless. Boom. However, just when everyone was stunned by Yu's peerless face, the Light Wind Empire's Imperial City's gate exploded fiercely. This explosion caused everyone's mind to tremble, and bad memories surged into their minds. When the demons invaded, it was the same. Could it be that the demons had invaded again? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, then fled in panic. Everyone in the restaurant disappeared in an instant. Only Yu was left standing. Her face paled, her mind desperate. The demons invaded again? This time without Owner Bu, how can we get through this crisis? Boom! Smoke and dust rolled. Inside the smoke, two beams of scarlet light emerged. Bu Fong and Ao Bai, the golden-haired young man, were bewildered. A moment later, a giant scorpion pincer pounded on Ao Bai's head. The terrifying pressure stirred up the spirit energy in this area, causing it to fluctuate. Ao Bai's eyes focused. A moment later, he turned into a jet of gold light and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already far away. "What the heck?" Ao Bai said coldly. As the other descended from the sky, he must have come to find a chance. However, he attacked him without saying a word. Psycho! Ao Bai's aura surged. Gold light bloomed dazzlingly. An explosion echoed. The void shook. Ao Bai's body shot out, tearing the air and creating a series of sonic booms. Suddenly, he collided with the giant demon scorpion that walked out of the smoke and dust. Terrifying air waves rippled everywhere. Sand and pebbles rolled everywhere. Bu Fong's eyes narrowed as he allowed the wind and waves to hit him. A jet of gold light and the demon scorpion fought fiercely. One was a great ethereal, and the other was an almighty. They were evenly matched. Shortly after, they were locked in a fierce battle. The gold light scattered. Ao Bai landed on the ground. The ground cracked, shaking unceasingly. He lifted his head. His eyes shrank. A moment later, two long gold knives appeared in his hands. Knife energy swept. Bu Fong watched the two of them fight, his mouth twitching. Turning around, he walked towards the bronze palace in the distance. Landing in this valley, the aroma of the dish in the air became thicker. It was so thick that it even moved his face. He could feel that he would soon be able to see this mysterious dish. Ignoring the battle behind him, Bu Fong walked deeper into the forest. Shortly after, he walked out of the thick forest surrounded by towering trees. It was empty in front of Bu Fong, and a massive pond emerged in front of him. In the middle of the pond were two ancient, pitch-black ships. They were pulling a bronze palace, hovering in the middle of the pond. It was what Bufang had seen through the jade token. The two ancient black ships, that ancient bronze palace, everything was so familiar. It was the palace and ships that appeared in the Acheron River in Earth Prison. Why would they appear in the hidden dragon continent? Moreover, they appeared in the southern region where the spirit energy in the hidden dragon continent was extremely thin. This world was located underground in the southern region. The spirit energy here was much thicker than the southern region, which was strange. Standing on the shore, Bufang took a deep breath as he looked at the vast lake that stretched as far as his eyes could see. The lake water was blood-red, but it didn't have the smell of blood. It was somewhat similar to the Acheron River. Far from them, the battle between the demon Scorpion and Aobai had ended. The two of them hadn't won yet, but for the chance, they had given up and come here. Why is there a human here? The giant demon Scorpion opened its mouth, its voice booming and echoing. Bufang glanced at the demon Scorpion, losing interest. Xiehe, whose pincers he had smashed with his wok, was stronger, but that was all. Bufang had eaten demon scorpion meat. Thus, he had no interest in the demon scorpion anymore. This human is so weak. What are you afraid of? Aobai sneered, not concealing the disdain in his voice. A human at the divine soul realm with a one-step soul ladder, and a demon scorpion at the great ethereal realm would care about him? I'm afraid? I can squash you stinky shrimp to death with my pincers. The demon scorpion shouted. However, it was like what Aobai had said. Bufang was too weak. Soon, the demon scorpion ignored Bufang. Could it be that they, a great ethereal realm expert and an almighty, couldn't compete with an ant for the chance? Aobai walked to the lakeside and looked at the sparkling, blood-red water. His face became stern. This water isn't poisonous or corrosive. However, it has an extremely dangerous aura. There's a terrifying existence at the bottom of this lake. Aobai said. The demon scorpion expert sneered coldly. He didn't mind the stinky shrimp's words. Bufang didn't mind the two of them. He walked straight to a small dock far from them. A small boat was anchored there. Apparently, this small boat was for them to cross the lake. Indeed, a human like an ant. Why do you need a broken boat to cross the lake? The demon scorpion expert sneered coldly. He had transformed into his human form, a brawny man with a scorpion tattoo on his body, which made him look ferocious. Although this place forbade flying, it wasn't hard to cross the lake. Taking one step, the great ethereal demon scorpion expert decided to use his cultivation base to walk on the water to cross the lake. However, splash! Aobai's pupils shrank when he realized that the expert from the demon scorpion tribe had fallen into the lake before he could stabilize himself. In just a blink of an eye, the lake water had so many black shadows. Those shadows were swimming fast toward the demon scorpion expert. Splash! Crash! The demon scorpion expert hurried to transform into his true form. His scorpion pincers hit the lake shore. His entire body was sent flying, and the blood lake water splashed noisily. This lake doesn't only forbid flying, but it also restricts cultivation base. The demon scorpion expert was so scared. As soon as he entered the lake, he felt a terrifying danger lock on him. Murderous aura came from every direction. He was so scared that he had to transform into his true form, using his giant body to get out of the water. No wonder why this lake had left a dock for them, and there was even a boat there. When Aobai saw what happened to the demon scorpion expert, he didn't say anything, running toward Bufang's small boat. After a leap, Aobai landed on the small boat. At this moment, Bufang was sitting cross-legged on the bow of the small boat. He didn't say anything. The demon scorpion expert also transformed into his human form, dashing toward the small boat. The three of them entered the boat. The small boat that had stopped moving suddenly began to slowly float, sailing into the distance. On the small boat, the demon scorpion expert and Aobai were a little pale. Since their true energy was locked, they couldn't use it. They only had the power of their bodies. This blood-colored lake was indeed somewhat strange. The small boat slowly swayed. Although it wasn't fast, it was still moving toward the two giant black ancient ships in the distance. Soon, the black shadows in the lake emerged from the water. Aobai and the demon scorpion expert were scared, their faces ashen. Chapter 871. Amethyst Elder's body crossed the sky. His speed was so fast, as though he had turned into a meteor. He hovered 10,000 miles in the sky, his purple robe fluttering in the wind. The southern region was a barren land, the border of the hidden dragon continent. In this area, the spirit energy was thin, and the warriors were weak. To Amethyst Elder, the people here were all stupid. However, they couldn't get rid of this stupidity. Unless one day they could leave the southern region and see a bigger world, they would have a chance to get rid of their stupidity. He knew that the heavenly secret saintess came from this remote and backward southern region. However, Amethyst Elder thought that the heavenly secret saintess had a chance to leave this backward place and receive the heavenly secret Holy Land's nurturing. How could she come back to the heavenly secret Holy Land? She was destroying her own future. As he flew in the sky, of course, he could see the raging flames of war on the ground. Thick nether energy turned into layers of clouds, covering everything. Berserk devil scorpions wreaked havoc on the ground, slaughtering the foolish humans of southern border. Amethyst Elder sighed, feeling pity for the state of the universe. What was the purpose of the hidden dragon heaven pass? It was to protect this world from the invasion of the devils from the ruined prison. However, Amethyst Elder understood that the heaven pass tribulation couldn't stop the devils from the ruined prison for long. Those devils would eventually invade this world. When that time came, it would be even more terrible than today. The only thing he could do now was to protect his family and raise his cultivation to the next level so that he could have a place for himself in the future and struggle at death's door. So, I have to destroy the heavenly star catcher disc. Amethyst Elder narrowed his eyes and revealed a fierce look. His figure streaked across the void. His figure crossed the sky, heading toward the illusory spirit swamp. With Amethyst Elder's cultivation base, it didn't take him much time to travel from the Light Wind Empire to the illusory spirit swamp. Shortly after, he could see the swamp in his line of sight. Compared to the Light Wind Empire, the demon scorpion race hadn't invaded yet. Thus, the flames of war didn't last as long as he had imagined. Swish! In the distance, a vast amount of water vapor came rushing over. The illusory spirit swamp was close to the endless sea. The salty smell of the waves made Amethyst Elder frown. They had arrived at the Grand Serpentmen City. Compared to the imperial palace of the Light Wind Empire, the Grand Serpentmen City was much simpler. However, its defenses were much more solid. At this point, Amethyst Elder's eyes shone with a bright light. It's here. There's no mistaking it. He raised his head, and a crack tore open in his palm. A gurgling eye shone brightly. I can feel it. The heavenly star catcher disk's aura is in this big city. The eyeball looked excited, its hoarse voice echoing. Amethyst Elder looked down at the Grand Serpentmen City and asked, "Is it in the city below us?" In the next moment, he planned to descend to the Grand Serpentmen City. However, suddenly, Amethyst Elder raised his head and looked into the distance. There, a strange wave of energy surged into the sky. The eyeball in Amethyst Elder's palm instantly widened. This aura. This fast. Head towards the direction of the explosion. Go. Demonic, I shouted anxiously. Amethyst Elder was dumbstruck. To this demon eye, what could be more important than destroying the heavenly star catcher disk? However, if the demon eye wanted him to go in that direction, he would go. He leaped up into the sky, his body shooting forward. The blood-red lake was so calm, with ripples on its surface. Bufang sat cross-legged on the bow of the boat. His heart sank, his breathing steady. The gold shrimp Aobai and the beefy demon scorpion man were sitting on the other side of the small boat. Their eyes were a little frightened. Looking at the bubbles rising unceasingly around the lake, they couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air. This lake was too mysterious. Blood-red water, flying, and cultivation base were restricted. At this moment, they couldn't use any bit of energy in their bodies, except for the power of their bodies. To them, who were used to using energy, it was too much of a torture. The speed of the small boat wasn't fast. It slowly drifted towards the two ancient-looking ships in the distance. Gurgle. Bubbles rose from the surface of the lake around the small boat, and in the next moment, black shadows rapidly gathered around it. Aobai and the beefy demon scorpion man took in a breath of cold air. They were a little frightened, looking at the shadowy creatures gathering. Those creatures gave them a feeling of extreme danger. If they fell into the lake, they would be slaughtered. Swish! The blood-red lake water splashed. A ferocious spirit beast emerged from the lake. Aobai's body shivered. Indeed, it was that kind of savage spirit beast. Blood lobsters. These blood lobsters weren't big, about the size of 3 palms. However, each blood lobster's pincers were long and sharp. Moreover, when they opened their mouths, it would make people's hearts shiver. Blood lobsters were almost extinct creatures. How could they appear in this remote and backward southern region? Aobai was so flustered. He was lucky that he didn't fall into the water. Once he did, those blood lobsters would surround him. Even if he didn't die, he would be skinned alive. Blood lobsters were social creatures. They would tear apart any creature that invaded their territory and eat them one bite at a time. There was a saying in the endless sea. Wherever the blood lobsters passed, all creatures would retreat. However, back then, the endless shrimp ancestor should have already wiped out this type of blood lobsters and completely exterminated the race. And now, there were so many blood lobsters in this lake in the southern region. Aobai's face turned ashen. You stinky shrimp. You're a shrimp and they're also shrimp. We're relatives. Can't you persuade them? At this moment, the demon scorpion man was also scared out of his wits. His mouth was shivering. Although the demon scorpion man didn't recognize those blood lobsters, he could feel the danger. The moment he entered the water, those blood lobsters had given him a sense of danger. The feeling of death made him transform into his true form and jump out of the lake. F***CK. Are you a pig? I'm a gold shrimp, not a blood lobster. If persuasion works, why do you need the blood lobster's pincers? Moreover, don't you have pincers? Why don't you F***king persuade them? Aobai rolled his eyes, shouting at the beefy demon scorpion man. The demon scorpion man was bewildered. Having pincers made them relatives? Where did this stinky shrimp get his weird logic? On a small boat, the moment Bufang sensed the blood lobsters, his closed mind shivered. He opened his eyes, looking at the blood lobsters surrounding their boat. He couldn't help but feel surprised and excited. What a big crayfish! Bufang was bewildered. He didn't expect that the creatures in the lake were actually lobsters. Thinking about lobsters, Bufang's eyes brightened. His mouth watered and his throat moved. Spicy lobsters, braised lobsters, 13 spice lobsters. Just thinking about them made him excited. Bufang thought that he would never have a chance to eat such delicacies again. Who would have thought that this lake would have so many delicious ingredients? Lobsters? However, those lobsters were a little bigger. Anyway, it didn't stop Bufang from drooling over them. Aobai and the demon scorpion man also saw the expression on Bufang's face, which made them more frightened. Was this human scared out of his wits? What kind of expression was that? What did he mean by drooling? Didn't he know that the 3 of them were about to die in the hands of those blood lobsters? There were so many blood lobsters. How could a small boat defend against them? When the blood lobsters pounced on them, their boat would capsize. At that time, not to mention the humans, even the boat would be eaten clean. This lake was so King strange. It was okay to forbid flying, but why did it forbid cultivation base? It was okay to forbid cultivation base, but why did it forbid them from crossing the lake? Why did it have so many blood lobsters? Without cultivation base, they encountered blood lobsters with their big pincers. Wasn't it like delivering food from 1,000 miles away? Human, don't laugh. It's scary. Right now, we're the blood lobster's food, not the other way around. You should look scared now, Aobai said earnestly. Aobai tried his best to persuade him. This child might really be a little silly. Bufang gave Aobai a faint look. He was still thinking about how to take those blood lobsters away. The small boat continued to glide, but the blood lobsters didn't move. They just used their compound eyes to look at the small boat and the 3 pieces of fat meat on the boat. Bufang sat on the small boat, frowning. All of a sudden, his brows relaxed. The corners of his mouth rose, revealing a curve. A moment later, he took out his precious fishing rod from the system-dimensional bag. There was a fish hook attached to the fishing line. Bufang inserted a piece of bloodied spirit beast meat into the fishing line and flung it away, causing the fish hook to fall not far away. Swish! Swish! In just a blink of an eye, the blood lobsters in the lake moved. As if they smelled blood, they chased after the hook and began to attack each other's food. Aobai and the beefy demon scorpion man were a little dumbstruck. They had never thought that they could do something like that. Wait a minute. What the *CK does this human want to do? What is he doing? Fishing for lobsters? He's courting death, isn't he? He should just stay on the small boat. As long as the small boat was there, the blood lobsters wouldn't attack them. But why did this human want to court death by fishing for lobsters? Did he really think that those blood lobsters were his food? With their current cultivation base being restrained, if this human fished up a powerful blood lobster, the 3 of them would become the souls of the blood lobster's pincers. Bufang didn't react to Aobai and the beefy demon scorpion man's fear. He was fishing for lobsters. What did it have to do with these 2? No matter what, when he finished cooking the sweet spicy crayfish, these 2 wouldn't have a share. Buzz, all of a sudden, the fishing line tightened, which meant that a prey had taken the bait. Bufang's eyes brightened. A moment later, he pulled harder. Swish! The blood-red lake water splashed everywhere. The blood lobsters around were stirred up. All of a sudden, Bufang grabbed a blood lobster. It swung its thick legs in the air, showing its 2 big pincers. This crayfish must have meat. Bufang's eyes brightened. Aobai and the beefy demon scorpion man were so scared that they wanted to hug each other. What the *CK? This human was simply insane. Even if he dies, he wants to drag them down with him, right? The blood lobster that Bufang had fished up was a little bewildered. A moment later, its compound eyes shot out light. Its 2 long and narrow pincers opened, radiating sharpness. Due to the taboo, the blood lobsters couldn't attack the small boat. However, if the human in the small boat wanted to court death and drag them up, the blood lobsters could do whatever they wanted. The blood lobster that was caught bared its fangs and brandished its claws, releasing a terrifying murderous aura. Soon, he would be able to tear the 3 people on the boat into pieces. Hovering in the air, the blood lobster opened its pincers and mouths. Hissing, Aobai's face paled. He, the 3rd crown prince of the gold shrimp tribe in the endless sea, was scared by King Lobster. What King Lobster? Chapter 872. A long time ago, the blood lobsters were a terrifying existence in the endless sea. Wherever they passed, a storm would sweep over everything, leaving a mess. They were ferocious, brutal, and their sharp pincers wanted to crush everything. In the endless sea, the blood lobsters were the nightmare of many oceanic tribes. They were shrimps, but they didn't submit to the gold shrimp tribe's management. They even wanted to rebel, to overthrow the shrimp ancestors' rule. Of course, in the end, the entire tribe was erased by the shrimp ancestor. They reaped what they had sown. However, Aobai had never imagined that there would be so many blood lobsters living in the deep underground pit of the southern region. Their brutal faces reminded Aobai of the terrible things he had experienced a long time ago. Swish! The blood-colored lake water splashed, and a blood lobster waving its claws was dragged out of the lake water, its body rolling in the air. Aobai and the demon scorpion almost hugged each other. They were scared out of their wits. Bufang pulled up a blood lobster. The other blood lobster's eyes brightened, gazing at Bufang. Quite the contrary, Bufang was calm. He pulled the fishing rod with one hand. The fishing line tightened, and the blood lobster swung in the air. A moment later, Bufang's bandaged arm rose. As Aobai and the demon scorpion gawked, they dropped their jaws and caught the blood lobster. In this big lake, their true energy was sealed. They couldn't use their true energy cultivation base, so they could only rely on their physical strength. With just physical strength, how could they resist those blood lobsters? However, when Bufang took action, he had completely overturned their idea. Bufang's bandaged arm rose. The shell of the lobster collided, and the blood lobster was caught. Its two pincers were bent backward. A silk thread appeared in the air. Bufang bit on it. A moment later, the silk thread tied the lobster up. The ferocious blood lobster with its claws and fangs was tied up, falling on the boat. So tough. I'm sure it's meaty. Bufang squatted down and pulled at the blood lobster that was tied up tightly. The blood lobster was dumbfounded. Its compound eyes rolled around. If there was only one crayfish, how could it be satisfying? Therefore, Bufang was not satisfied at all. He continued to fish for crayfish. In any case, there was nothing to do on the boat. Based on the boat's rocking speed, there was no telling when they would arrive. Therefore, Bufang was happy to fish for prawns. Hua hua hua! Water splashed in the blood-colored lake. Blood lobsters were fished out of the lake one after another, their legs dangling in the air. Bufang skillfully caught the blood lobster. Flipping his hand, he tied the blood lobster tightly with a silk thread. 1, 2, 3 dong dong dong. The boat was trembling slightly. The shrimp tribe's third prince, Aobai, was dumbfounded. The beefy demon scorpion man was also bewildered. The two of them looked at the blood lobsters that Bufang had tied up. They didn't know what to say, their entire bodies numb. Those were fake blood lobsters. The corners of Aobai's mouth twitched. How could the brutal blood lobsters be slaughtered like that? The beefy demon scorpion man rolled his eyes. Looking at Bufang's smooth, flowing hands, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. The speed of the boat slowed down. It was mainly because of the pile of blood lobsters on the deck. It slowed down the boat's speed. Those blood lobsters were tied up tightly. They wanted to get rid of the rope, but they couldn't. They could only spit bubbles. Aobai looked at Bufang, who was so excited that he wanted to fish more lobsters. He said, "Human, don't fish anymore. Enough, enough. If you fish more, the boat will sink." If the boat sank, they would also sink into the water. At that time, they would have to face those savage blood lobsters. That's enough. Bufang was a little bewildered. Looking at the blood lobsters on the boat, he furrowed his brows. He waved his hand. Instantly, all the blood lobsters were collected into the system's dimensional bag. The boat was cleared one more time, and it moved faster. At the same time, Bufang turned around, continuing to fish for lobsters. Aobai and the demon scorpion man were silent. They couldn't help but feel sad for those lobsters. The blood lobsters that used to roam the endless sea were mercilessly fished away. Another boat full of blood lobsters was collected by Bufang into the system's dimensional bag. Bufang finally stopped fishing for lobsters. The small boat was approaching the ancient black ship. The number of blood lobsters around the ancient ship had decreased. It seemed that something terrifying was affecting those blood lobsters. There was a thud. The small boat hit the ancient ship. Aobai and the demon scorpion man were bewildered. They lifted their heads, looking at the 5-meter-tall ship in a daze. From a distance, they didn't think the ship was that big. However, when they got closer, they found out that this ancient black ship was actually this massive. Swish! All of a sudden, a black ladder descended from the black ship. This ladder was made of some kind of spirit grass which was really tight. Bufang looked at the ladder, then at the big ship. Around them was a vast blood-red lake. Besides getting on the ship, they had no other choice. Thus, Bufang didn't hesitate. He stepped on the ladder, soaring up into the sky, climbing toward the big ship. Aobai and the demon scorpion man followed Bufang. The three of them climbed the ladder to the ancient black ship. After climbing for a while, they finally reached the end. Bufang's feet stomped, and his figure shot up, landing on the deck of the ship. However, as soon as he landed, Bufang felt his hair rising. Aobai and the demon scorpion man, who had just climbed up, were also frightened. It was so quiet and dark. The deck of the ship was dilapidated, with a thick layer of dust. This ancient black ship wasn't made of wood. The black deck was made of some strange material. It was a little cold and chilly. Aobai didn't recognize this ancient ship, and the demon scorpion man seemed to have some impression of it. However, he couldn't remember which book he had read about this ancient ship. It was the second time for Bufang to see this ship. Two ships were pulling a bronze palace, drifting on the Acheron River. Mysterious, strange, and incomparably mysterious. It filled people with the desire to explore. More importantly, these two black ships and a palace had appeared in the hidden dragon continent. This dilapidated ship, who lowered the ladder just now? Aobai seemed to remember something, asking. Bufang was bewildered, and the demon scorpion man was frightened. Only God knew who had lowered the ladder. There was nothing strange on the deck of the ship. Bufang's target was the bronze palace because he found that the aroma of the dishes came from there. This black ship was just a carrier, so it wasn't Bufang's target. Circling around, Bufang walked to the back of the ship, watching from there. There were massive chains as thick as a human, connecting to the massive bronze palace in the distance. Looking at the palace from up close, it was incomparably majestic and magnificent. It was made with exquisite craftsmanship, incomparably exquisite. All of a sudden, Bufang's eyes focused. At the gate of the palace, Bufang seemed to see a shadow. A shadow was kneeling at the gate of the palace. Moreover, the aroma of the dishes came from that gate. That place seemed to be where all the secrets were. That palace. Is it what grandfather has been pursuing? Aobai leaned against the deck, gazing at the hazy bronze palace in the distance as he said. Getting to the bronze palace was indeed a problem. Those chains are the way to get there, said Bufang. Then, he didn't say anything else, turning around and walking into the cabin. If they wanted to get through the chains, they had to get out of the cabin and walk along the chains. Aobai and the demon scorpion man furrowed their brows. Eventually, they followed him, stepping into the cabin. In just a blink of an eye, the three of them felt a cold and gloomy aura spreading through their bodies. Aobai spun around, but he didn't see anyone there. He had just sensed someone's aura. His golden brows furrowed. Clanging sounds rang out as two long knives appeared in his hands. This cabin always gave him a sense of unease and danger. Bufang walked in the front. He clasped his hands, walking in the pitch-black cabin. Compared to Yu's netherworld ship, this black ship was much brighter. The interior of the ship was very luxurious. There were many rooms, but everything seemed to be in ruins. He walked to the entrance of the staircase and walked down the stairs. However, as soon as Bufang reached the staircase, a grunt arose. A skull rolled down the staircase. This made Bufang furrow his brows. It seemed there seemed to be someone in this ancient black ship. However, he couldn't find him at first glance. They walked to the second floor, where there was a door. Pushing open the door plank, they could see the rattling of thick chains underneath. Go through here, said Bufang. Then, he turned around. However, when he turned around, he felt his hair rising. Because he found that Aobai and the demon scorpion expert had disappeared. He was the only one left on the ancient black ship. Why did they disappear? Was it another illusion? Bufang exhaled, calming his heart. Since the two of them had disappeared, let them be. Bufang lifted his head, looking at the bronze palace in the distance. His figure leaped forward and landed on the thick chain. He stepped on it. The chain rattled, shaking hard. The chain connected to the bronze palace, which was dozens of meters long. There were 3 chains on each ship, so there were a total of 6 chains. Bufang landed on the chain in the middle. Bufang steadied himself and waited until the chain stopped shaking. Then, he slowly took a step forward. Neither fast nor slow, he walked toward the bronze palace. However, with every step he took, he felt his spirit sea boil. This boiling feeling made Bufang furrow his brows. The golden dragon bone kitchen knife spirit in his head let out a melodious dragon roar. All of a sudden, a wave of mental pressure fell. With his hands clasped behind his back, he continued to walk forward, stepping on the chain and walking slowly down the mountain. The chain was swaying. However, Bufang was as steady as a rock. This chain had some mysteries. After every 10 meters, Bufang felt his mental energy boil even more. This kind of increase gave Bufang a headache. Fortunately, his spirit sea was so vast, so it wasn't affected much. At this moment, what Bufang didn't know was, Aobai and the demon scorpion man were standing on the 2 chains next to him. They couldn't see each other. At this moment, Aobai gritted his teeth, his eyes bloodshot. His head was in pain and his mental energy was boiling, which made him feel so uncomfortable. The demon scorpion man's body was shaking. At this moment, they just wanted to get out of the chain and enter the bronze palace. Bufang rubbed his glabella. In the last 10 meters, the boiling mental energy made his head hurt. However, it was still within the acceptable range. However, in the last 10 meters, with each step, his mental energy boiled even more. It felt like his mental energy was about to burn. He opened his mouth, and the breath he exhaled was scorching hot. All of a sudden, the moment Bufang was about to enter the bronze palace, the chain he was standing on shook hard. Bufang was bewildered. He turned to look in the direction of the black ship. There, a figure wrapped in a tattered black robe suddenly descended and stepped on the chains, causing them to shake violently. Chapter 873. The shaking of the chain was beyond Bufang's expectation. Bufang didn't expect that a shadow would suddenly appear on the chain where there was no one. That person seemed to want to stop him from entering the bronze palace. Bufang frowned, his eyes gazing at the shadow on the chain. The chain was shaking hard, as if it would fall into the blood lake below if it wasn't careful. That person was wrapped in a black cloak, which was torn and tattered. He looked old, and the hem of his clothes was torn, which made him look really old. His head was wrapped in a black cloak, so he couldn't see his face. All of a sudden, that shadow lifted his head, laughing so hard that it made people's hair stand on end. He seemed to be quite pleased with himself. That laughter made Bufang uncomfortable. He didn't want me to enter the bronze palace? Was there something in the palace that the shadow wanted to protect? The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched. After taking a deep look at the figure, he raised his hand. He stood firmly on the chain. Bufang took a deep breath. He raised his hand, making a throwing gesture. Gathering power, throwing. Lobster. It's you. Bufang hissed. Then, he waved his hand, taking out a tied blood lobster from the system-dimensional bag. He untied the rope on the blood lobster. A red beam of light crossed the sky. That shadow was a little bewildered. Lifting his head, his scarlet eyes froze. A moment later, his eyes brightened. What the heck was that? In the sky, a blood lobster bared its fangs and brandished its claws. Its 2 sharp pincers emitted cold light, which was really sharp. Crack! Crack! Shortly, the blood lobster fell, landing on the chain. Crack, crack, crack. The blood lobster's legs moved as it dashed toward the shadow in the tattered black cloak. It was really fast. That shadow was a little surprised. He didn't think that Bufang would use this kind of trick to deal with him. Standing at the end of the chain, his spirit sea was boiling. How terrifying was that? Under such circumstances, this guy actually thought of using blood lobsters to deal with him. This fellow is a little interesting. However, a mere blood lobster, the figure sneered. Then, he raised his hand, instantly catching the blood lobster. That technique was somewhat similar to the way Bufang caught lobsters. Bufang was also slightly taken aback. How could his opponent know how to catch the blood lobster? Although it was slightly different, the essence of the technique was the same. Was he also a chef? The appearance of a chef in this place was somewhat meaningful. After all, there was a rich aroma coming from the bronze palace. Aobai and the demon scorpion man were baffled. The two of them slowly walked on the chain. From their point of view, there was no one else in their surroundings. It was extremely quiet. But just as they were halfway there, the spiritual sea in their minds was about to explode. A blood lobster suddenly appeared in the air, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Aobai's legs almost turned to jelly. There was nothing in front of them, but suddenly, a blood lobster appeared. Who were they trying to scare? Bam! Aobai and the demon scorpion man didn't say anything. They crouched, hugging the giant chain, shivering. The other's trick was beyond Bufang's estimation. He could catch the blood lobster that easily. Seems like the other is a little unfathomable. Bufang narrowed his eyes. Then, without saying anything, he threw out 3 blood lobsters. 3 blood lobsters were hurled at the figure in the distance. That figure was a little bewildered then. He cursed under his breath, turning around and returning to the ancient black ship. Thump! Thump! The 2 blood lobsters lost their support, falling into the lake. As for the last one, perhaps because Bufang had missed his target, its pincer clamped on the chain where Aobai was standing. The chain began to shake violently. Seeing the black-cloaked figure run away, Bufang didn't bother to chase after him. The boiling pain in his head made him rub the spot between his brows. As for the other blood lobster on the chain, Bufang didn't care about it. He turned around and walked away slowly. Shortly after, Bufang stepped on the bronze palace. He couldn't say that he had reached the bronze palace. Bufang's feet were stepping on layers of bronze stairs. When he reached the top of the stairs, he found that there was still a distance between him and the bronze palace. It looked like a small continent made of bronze. And, on this small continent there was a magnificent bronze palace. As soon as he stepped on the bronze ground, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. He turned to look at the chain in the distance. Cries and screams echoed unceasingly. Aobai hugged the chain tightly, his face twisting. Behind him, a blood lobster slowly climbed up, stabilizing itself on the chain. After stabilizing itself, the blood lobster gazed at Aobai in the distance. Its little legs moved, swaying on the chain as it crawled toward Aobai. Motherf asterisk cur. Aobai was about to cry. Daji. Don't come here. We're all lobsters. Why do you have to trouble lobsters? The blood lobster rolled its compound eyes. It continued to move forward, swinging its pincer. Aobai's body shook. He swayed left and right, making the chain shake harder. He wanted to throw the blood lobster off the chain. When Bufang saw the scene, he found it funny. He didn't know if he should cry or laugh. Recalling Aobai's high-spirited appearance on the cliff, he was afraid that this valley would be the darkest place for Aobai for the rest of his life. Bufang turned to look at the side. There, the beefy demon scorpion man was safe. Moreover, he was about to reach the bronze stairs. To this, Bufang couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth, curving into a smile. Aobai and the demon scorpion couldn't see Bufang. It seemed they had entered a mysterious environment. Bufang blinked. Then, he took out a tightly tied blood lobster from the system-dimensional bag. He untied the blood lobster. A moment later, he threw the blood lobster on the chain near the demon scorpion man. The beefy demon scorpion man was so excited because he was about to reach the bronze stairs. As long as he could reach there, it meant that he could solve the secret. He was so excited because his instinct told him that the thing the experts of the ruined prison had been searching for was in this bronze palace. As long as he could solve this secret, his position in the demon scorpion race, or the entire ruined prison, would reach an extremely high level. The excitement in his heart was about to burst out. He tried his best to move forward. No matter how hard his spirit sea boiled, it couldn't stop him from moving. All of a sudden, the beefy demon scorpion man was bewildered. His pupils shrank at a speed naked eyes could observe. A moment later, his hair stood on end. A blood lobster suddenly appeared in the sky. The blood lobster drew an arc in the air and fell toward where he was standing. With a thud, it fell not far from him. The blood lobster spat out a bubble, its eyes gazing at the beefy demon scorpion man. A moment later, it crawled toward the beefy man at an extremely fast speed. Then, another person appeared on the chain, crying while hugging the chain. Bufang looked at this funny scene, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. He didn't care about their final outcome. Turning around, he climbed the bronze stairs. Stepping on the bronze stairs, his spirit sea stopped boiling. Bufang felt his mental force increase a little bit. It was good news. Climbing the bronze stairs, he saw the majestic bronze palace in the distance. That palace was made with uncanny craftsmanship, which was really exquisite. No matter if it was the mysterious patterns carved on the palace or the style of the palace, it was really dazzling. Previously, Bufang didn't have a good look at this palace. This time, Bufang could observe it carefully. Clasping his hands, he walked toward the bronze palace. The ancient black ship, the door opened. A figure shrouded in a black cloak crawled out, jumping on the chain. With a heavy panting sound, the figure in the black robe swiftly moved over the chain and stepped onto the bronze stairs in an instant. Stepping on the bronze steps, this person's mind suddenly trembled. It seemed like he had thought of something terrible. However, looking at Bufang's back, the figure's scarlet eyes brightened. He followed him one more time. Bufang walked slowly. He was getting closer to the bronze palace, and the scene in front of the palace appeared in front of him. Looking at the scene in front of the palace, his eyes stiffened a little solemn. Because he found out that the figure he saw before was kneeling in front of the bronze door, not moving an inch. The air was filled with a thick aroma of food. As the aroma entered Bufang's nose, it made Bufang's blood boil, making him feel extremely hot. Bufang had never felt such a feeling before. Walking past that figure, Bufang looked at the source of the aroma. There, a dish was quietly placed on the ground, emitting a warm radiance. Outside the door, a person was kneeling, and inside the door, a dish was placed on the ground. This scene was really strange. Light Wind Empire in front of Fang Fang's little store, Yang Xiaoyi and Xiao Xiaolong's faces were filled with fear. The demons had invaded again. This time, Owner Bu wasn't here. Who could help them? Yang Xiaoyi's eyes revealed a trace of despair. Could it be that they couldn't escape this time? Xiaopi was lying on Yu's shoulder. Yu raised her hand, rubbing Xiaopi's head. A moment later, the tip of her feet lightly touched the ground, and her figure instantly floated up. The netherworld ship appeared, and Yu stepped on it. Her figure dashed out of the imperial city. Yang Xiaoyi and Xiao Xiaolong were bewildered. Looking at Xiaopi, who was lying on Yu's shoulder, leaving, they seemed to remember something. Exchanging looks, they ran out of the city. On the city wall, all the guards had a face of fear. Their legs trembled as they fell on the city wall, not daring to move at all. From afar, nether energy covered the sky as it approached. A group of demons approached unceasingly. The terrifying aura made their hearts tremble. He had lost both of his hands, but he was full of murderous energy. This time, he had brought a great void expert with him. He was determined to tear that damned chef into pieces. He dared to use the demon scorpion race as food. That despicable human deserved to die 10,000 times. In front of him was a great ethereal realm expert from the demon scorpion race. His aura was terrifying. He punched out, and the shadow of his fist swept across, shattering the majestic city wall. The humans on the city wall all revealed looks of terror. This scene made Xie feel so happy. The pain of losing his pincers was also covered up. Kill them all. And that chef, your father, want to chew off his flesh bite by bite. That great ethereal realm expert was so unscrupulous and destructive, which made him a little excited. Taking a step, his figure appeared on the city wall like lightning. He opened his mouth, laughing loudly. Nether energy shot up into the sky, as if it wanted to tear the sky. The humans in the city were all shivering, kneeling on the ground. This supreme invincible feeling made the great ethereal realm expert of the demon scorpion race really enjoy it. Just a great ethereal realm scorpion. What are you trying to do? You've lost the face of the netherworld creatures. All of a sudden in the void, a cold voice exploded. A moment later, a gold light appeared. Chapter 874. Aobai looked at the swaying blood lobster holding the chain with its big pincers. His eyes widened, becoming bloodshot. Stinky lobster! Don't come near this crown prince! Aobai roared inwardly. However, the blood lobster was still swaying, coming closer and closer. All of a sudden, the blood lobster swung its big pincer. Its body tilted, falling from the chain. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, falling into the lake. Splashing water, it splashed. Aobai was bewildered at first. Then, he became wild with joy. He didn't even know where he got the strength to crawl to the top of the bronze stairs. He fell on the bronze stairs, gasping for air. The demon scorpion man's mind was tense. Looking at the blood lobster coming closer, he cursed inwardly. It was okay if there were blood lobsters in the lake, but why were there blood lobsters on the chain? That bastard put the blood lobsters on the chain? Seeing the blood lobsters coming closer, the demon scorpion man's scorpion tail suddenly shot out from behind his butt. Swish! The scorpion tail shot out like a sharp arrow, piercing through the blood lobster in just a blink of an eye. The blood lobster's shell couldn't defend against the scorpion tail. Its body turned black at a speed naked eyes could observe. It was poisoned. The blood lobster's body stiffened, falling from the chain. Shortly after, it fell into the blood-colored lake underneath. The demon scorpion man's face was ruthless. Then, he cracked a cold smile. What if it was a blood lobster? Under his scorpion tail, it was just trash. Slowly climbing the bronze stairs, the demon scorpion man was bewildered because he saw Aobai lying on his back, panting. That fellow had arrived faster than him. And he said he wasn't related to the blood lobsters. The demon scorpion man's mouth twitched, revealing a cold smile. He looked at Aobai, who was panting, and slowly straightened his body. The demon scorpion man suddenly remembered that although this blood-colored lake forbade people from flying and cultivating, as an expert of the demon scorpion race, he had a natural advantage. The poison in his scorpion tail was enough to kill the gold shrimp tribe's third prince 7 or 8 times. Aobai was panting. He had just gotten rid of the fear of the blood lobsters. At this moment, his body and mind were exhausted. Suddenly, Aobai's heart tightened as he felt a terrifying aura shrouding his body. That was an aura of death, and it was even more terrifying than when they faced the blood lobster. This feeling, it was very bad. Aobai turned his head and felt a terrifying gust of wind coming at him. This strong wind made his heart tremble. It was the tail of a scorpion, and it was suffused with a black luster. That luster caused one's hair to stand on end. Extremely terrifying. Killing intent. A terrifying killing intent enveloped his entire body. Damn it! How dare you! Aobai didn't think that the devil of the demon scorpion race would dare to kill him. He was both shocked and angry, and also a little frightened, because this attack was a sure-kill attack, and there was no way to dodge it. Was he, the third prince of the Gold Shrimp tribe, going to die under the scorpion's tail? He was unwilling. Looking at the scorpion's tail enlarging in front of his eyes, Aobai's heart sank to the bottom. All of a sudden, the moment the scorpion tail was about to pierce him, a shadow came from a far distance. A pitiful howl arose. Aobai was bewildered. The scorpion's tail was opened. The demon scorpion man retreated to a far distance, howling pitifully. His heart shivering, Aobai shot up from the ground, gazing at the demon scorpion man. However, he was taken aback by what he saw, and a strange expression appeared on his face. What was going on? Why was there a blood lobster hanging on the demon scorpion's tail? There were blood lobsters on the bronze stairs too? No, besides the blood lobsters climbing up by themselves, there was another possibility. Aobai lifted his head, looking at the top of the stairs. He saw a figure standing with his hands clasped behind his back. Bufang indifferently looked down. That Aobai was also a gold shrimp, so he could be related to Xiaopi. Of course, Bufang couldn't let him die here. Thus, he threw out a blood lobster. No matter what, he had caught so many blood lobsters, so it didn't matter if he threw out a few. The demon scorpion man was so enraged that his eyes turned red. He clutched his scorpion tail, which was being clamped by a blood lobster's big pincer. Forcefully pulling the blood lobster's pincer away, the demon scorpion expert roared, throwing it into the lake. Damn it! Who's so King wicked? The demon scorpion man was enraged. His tail was almost gone. His eyes turned blood-red. The demon scorpion man's eyes shifted, falling on Bufang, who was standing at the top of the stairs. At this glance, all the doubts in his heart were cleared. That wicked thing, was this human in front of him? This human, Motherf***Cur. Turns out it's you. You dare to use blood lobsters to harm me. The demon scorpion expert shouted. At this moment, his murderous intent toward Bufang had reached its peak. Rumble! 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 The demon scorpion race's expert dashed out, rapidly climbing up the stairs. In just a short while, he reached the top of the stairs and roared angrily at Bufang. Damn human, I'm going to twist your head off. Bufang clasped his hands, his indifferent eyes looking at the demon scorpion man leaping on him. A jet of gold light flashed. The knife light was sharp. Blonde-haired Aobai landed by Bufang. His two knives swept horizontally, forcing the demon scorpion expert to back off. In this bronze palace, their fighting competence had declined. They could only use the power of their bodies, but they couldn't use their true energy. Thus, with two knives, Aobai had a big advantage. Kill me! You stinky scorpion, I won't let you live under the same sky. Aobai held the two knives, coldly looking at the demon scorpion man. Mwahaha! With you guys? Good. I'm going to deal with you guys here. This chance belongs to me. The demon scorpion expert said coldly. His scorpion tail hung down, but the hook was a little crooked. Boom! He stamped his feet on the ground, and his figure shot out. The demon scorpion expert lowered his body, raising his tail like a sharp arrow aiming at the enemy. He was about to shoot a fatal strike. Although you're weak, you know how to use blood lobsters to save this crown prince. You're smart. Since you've saved this crown prince knows how to repay you. I won't let this stinky scorpion hurt you. Aobai said arrogantly. Wielding the two gold knives, he dashed toward the distance, fighting with the demon scorpion expert. No true energy burst out and no energy burst out. The only thing that could be seen was the collision of physical bodies. Bufang looked at their battle, his face emotionless. He exhaled, then turned around, heading to the bronze palace in the distance. Approaching the bronze palace, in front of the palace, a tall figure was kneeling. Bufang's gaze focused as he looked over. he realized that the figure kneeling on the ground was emitting a terrifying pressure. That pressure made Bufang's heart shrink, because he found that the pressure from that fellow was even more terrifying than the blood-illuminating dragon he had met in Earth Prison. It made Bufang even more curious, that fellow. What kind of existence was he? Was he like the Lord Go, a top expert of the Netherworld? Why would such a top expert kneel here? Moreover, his vitality was gone. The aura of the kneeling expert was too terrifying. When Bufang was 1 meter away from that figure, he felt a terrifying danger. This danger made Bufang halt his step. Although he had the invincible vermilion robe, he didn't want to waste it. Bufang's eyes turned, falling on a dish inside the bronze door. He had seen that dish before. The thick aroma billowed, attracting people's minds. However, when Bufang focused on the dish, his eyes couldn't help but shrink. Because this dish wasn't something difficult to cook. It was just a simple noodle. Or rather a bowl of yang chun noodles. A bowl of yang chun noodles? Bufang's face was a little strange. Why was there a bowl of yang chun noodles in front of the Bronze Palace? Could it be that the experts of the Netherworld were kneeling here for this bowl of yang chun noodles? Bufang furrowed his brows. He approached the Bronze Palace. Raising his hand, he reached out to that bowl of yang chun noodles. However, just as his hand reached out and touched the bronze door, there were ripples. It was empty inside. That bowl of noodles was like a flower in the mirror or the moon in the water. He couldn't touch it at all. What was going on? Bufang furrowed his brows. System. This bowl. What's going on? Bufang quietly asked. The host's current level is too low. You don't have the right to know. This time, the system's reply was quick, and its solemn voice resounded. His level was too low? Bufang's eyes shrank. His level was still too low? Arg! A roar resounded. Bufang was startled. He turned his head, looking behind him. He saw that the demon scorpion expert had appeared not far from the kneeling Netherworld expert. His eyes bulged, filled with excitement and joy. Clutching his head, he let out an incomparably excited and maniacal laugh. Found it! I found it! Ah! I want to reach the peak of my life. The corpse of the strongest demon king of the ruined prison. I found it! The demon scorpion expert laughed so hard that tears rolled down his cheeks. Aobai was bewildered, and Bufang was a little dumbstruck. After the demon scorpion expert had reached his peak of laughter, he suddenly waved his hand. A massive black orb emerged in his hand, which was filled with thick nether energy. He slapped it, and the nether energy shattered instantly. Southern region, 100,000 mountains, the great ethereal realm experts sitting cross-legged on the meandering mandala tree that shot up into the sky opened their eyes. In their eyes, streaks of black gas were spiraling into the sky. What? This? Someone found the strongest demon king? Chapter 875. A jet of gold light arrived in just a blink of an eye. The great ethereal realm demon scorpion expert, who was standing on the city wall and laughing arrogantly, suddenly felt his body shake. He was hit by a massive force. His body was sent flying from the city wall. It smashed into the ground and plowed a trench in the ground. Smoke and dust filled the air. A clear and cold voice resounded in the sky. In the next moment, a pitch-black netherworld ship that emanated dense nether energy appeared in the sky. The gold light flashed, landing on the shoulder of the graceful figure standing on the front of the netherworld ship. You wore a long black dress. Her face was cold and arrogant as she indifferently scanned the entire area. The gold light on Xiaopi's body had yet to disperse. She laid on Yu's shoulder, rolling her eyes. On the city wall, all the guards of the Light Wind Empire were stunned. Ji Qingxue, who was in the army, lifted his head to look at Yu in the sky. His face was filled with shock and confusion. Is this a fairy descending to the mortal world to save our Light Wind Empire? Ji Qingxue's eyes were filled with excitement. Many people knelt on the ground, kowtowing unceasingly. Boom! Crushed stones scattered everywhere. A moment later, a figure soared up into the sky. A terrifying aura burst out from his body. The great ethereal realm demon scorpion expert's eyes were filled with rage. He was actually sent flying by someone when he was suppressing the world with his might. Who dared to send him flying at this moment? The demon scorpion expert wore a ferocious face as he looked at the netherworld ship hovering above the Light Wind Empire's city wall. The terrifying nether energy was boiling. His pupils constricted at once. Netherworld woman? You looked at him indifferently, her face emotionless. He and the others were a little shocked. The person who appeared in the sky wasn't someone else. It was the Netherworld woman, who was somewhat famous in the Netherworld. It wasn't that the Netherworld woman was really strong. In the legends, the Netherworld woman was cursed and exiled by the top existence of the Netherworld. But why was this woman here? Shouldn't he still be lost in the mystic realm? You're just a mere cursed Netherworld woman, and you still want to save these ignorant ants? Who is the one who is shaming the Netherworld? The demon scorpion tribe's great ethereal realm expert grinned. A moment later, energy rippled from his body. A rumbling sound rang out. His figure shot out like a speeding arrow. His speed was extremely fast. In an instant, it streaked across the sky. Boom! The terrifying nether energy transformed into a hideous demon scorpion that pounced towards you. However, when it got within an inch of you, it was blocked by a mysterious force. It couldn't go any further. Do you think you have the right to talk to me like that? Even if your devil scorpion race's devil lord came, he wouldn't dare to speak to me like this, you said coldly. The next moment, he raised his hand. An invisible wave immediately spread out. Nether might. You raised her palm and pushed it forward slowly. Instantly, an invisible force acted on the demon scorpion race's expert. His eyes shrank. An explosion rang out. That expert seemed to be suppressed by a terrifying power as he fell from the sky onto the ground, causing cracks to appear on the ground. You stepped out of the Netherworld ship. Her body seemed to teleport. In just a blink of an eye, she crossed the sky, hovering above the demon scorpion race's expert who was smashed on the ground. Then nether ghost rush. Boom. A palm pressed down. Instantly, the ground caved in deeply, and an invisible shockwave burst out. The ground exploded, turning into a massive, deep pit. Crushed rocks rolled everywhere. Everyone from the Light Wind Empire was dumbfounded. They all felt a wave of terror. This woman was so strong. However, a moment later, they became excited. This woman was their savior. If she was strong, it meant that they were safe. Inside the ruins, the demon scorpion race's expert slowly crawled out. His eyes were filled with intense anger. Netherworld woman. She's too much. While he was cursing, he was also frightened. Didn't they say that the Netherworld woman had just entered the great ethereal realm? Why is this Netherworld woman's cultivation getting stronger and stronger while she's being exiled and cursed? Could it be that being exiled and cursed could increase her cultivation base? Impossible. She had to endure the pain of the curse every day. How could she have time to cultivate? The demon scorpion race's expert gawked. A moment later, he roared, crawling out of the ruins. His entire body was in tatters, but his body suddenly swelled up and became bigger. He turned into a giant demon scorpion. The demon scorpion landed on the ground, rumbling. It opened its mouth, dripping mucus. Then, it roared at you, who was hovering in the air. Its giant pincers moved, and its scorpion tail moved unceasingly. You indifferently looked at the great ethereal realm demon scorpion, who had returned to his original form. The tip of her foot gently tapped the air, and her body floated away. Shortly after, she returned to the Netherworld ship. I'll let Shrimpy handle this big guy. Xiaopi, who was lying on his shoulder, rolled his compound eyes. A moment later, Xiaopi's body turned into a jet of gold light, dashing away. In just a blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the giant demon scorpion. Everybody was dumbstruck. They felt that it was funny. Ouyang Xiaoyi and Xiao Xiaolong, who had just arrived at the city wall, were panting. They looked at Xiaopi, who was hovering in the air, confronting the giant demon scorpion. Their faces were strange. The giant demon scorpion was 4 meters tall, which was almost as big as the city wall. That intimidating body brought pressure that made people feel short of breath. Is Xiaopi okay? That big guy is so scary. Ouyang Xiaoyi swallowed her saliva. You ask me? Who should I ask? I also want to know. How about we call Xiaopi back? Xiao Xiaolong said. The demon scorpion's red eyes, which were as big as a house, stared at Xiaopi. Shrimpy's body was still glowing with a golden light, and its compound eyes were rolling around. Roar! The demon scorpion roared. It opened its mouth and spat out a storm. Xiaopi's body seemed to have turned into a small boat in the storm. After roaring, the demon scorpion expert's eyes showed disdain. That gold shrimp was so small that it couldn't even fill the gap between his teeth. All of a sudden, he was stunned. Because in front of him, the gold shrimp's body suddenly emitted a dazzling gold light. That light was very dazzling. In the dazzling light, it dispersed. A moment later, the demon scorpion expert was left with a dumbstruck face. Because of the tiny guy in front of him, his body seemed to have become several hundred times bigger, like a towering mountain, looking down at him. Holy sh*t! The demon scorpion was stunned. The people of the Light Wind Empire were also dumbstruck. Boom! Boom! Light Wind Empire, 100,000 mountains. Terrifying auras shot up into the sky from the mandala tree. Each of the great ethereal realm experts opened their eyes excitedly. This signal. Someone had found their strongest demon king? They had found him? They had found the strongest demon king in this remote place. Those great ethereal realm experts didn't know how to describe their excitement at this moment. A moment later, they didn't say anything. They exchanged looks, then tore the void, jumping into it, heading toward the source of the signal. The strongest demon king had been found. This news wasn't ordinary. When they stepped into the void, the mandala tree had also sent this news to the ruin prison. This news made the ruin prison's experts attack the hidden dragon heaven pass even more fiercely. Boom! Like a meteor, it flashed across the sky and ruthlessly smashed into the illusory spirit swamp. The swamp water splashed everywhere and the mud rolled. Amethyst Elder's body was covered with true energy, standing in the bottomless pit. He raised his hand, his demon eyes wide and bloodshot. It's this aura. It's right down there. That's right. The strongest demon king's aura. The demon, I said hurriedly, its old voice echoing. Amethyst Elder glanced at the bottomless pit, but he didn't say anything. He stepped forward, dashing toward the bottom. Something that could make the demon eye so excited. Was there really something extraordinary down there? It should be known that the master of this demon eye was the demon king of the demon eye clan in the ruin prison. His cultivation base was so high. He didn't even like many things in the ruin prison, let alone the poor southern region of the hidden dragon continent. Amethyst Elder couldn't help but be curious. Bufang and Ao Bai looked at the crazed demon scorpion expert, not knowing what to say. That fellow was dancing crazily. He crushed a ball, sending black smoke into the sky. He circled around the netherworld expert who was kneeling in front of the bronze palace, his eyes filled with excitement and respect. Indeed, he's from the netherworld. The strongest demon king? How is he compared to the Lord Go? Bufang furrowed his brows. That fellow has lost his mind. Ao Bai held the pair of gold blades, frowning as well. He was fighting well before, but when he saw a figure, he suddenly went crazy. However, that silhouette did make him feel a little frightened. He was even more terrifying than the Black Dragon King of the Endless Sea Dragon Palace. The news about the strongest demon king cannot be leaked. You two must die. All of a sudden, the demon scorpion expert, who had been laughing for a long time, darkened his face. He coldly looked at Bufang and Aobai. Boom! In just a blink of an eye, the demon scorpion expert moved. His speed was so fast, like a black shadow, he dashed toward Bufang. With a ripping sound, the scorpion tail pierced Bufang's head. It wanted to nail Bufang to death. Aobai was enraged. His pair of blades slashed, forcing the demon scorpion expert to back off. "You stinky scorpion, you dare to be violent in front of this crown prince. This crown prince said that I will protect this human, so I must protect him. If you—" Aobai held the pair of blades, his golden hair fluttering in the wind as he spoke casually. However, before he could finish his words, he stopped abruptly. Because he looked around the demon scorpion expert. The black aura emitted from the ball that he had crushed earlier had actually condensed into a formation in the air. The formation flashed. Shadows emerged from it, tearing the void to come. Boom, boom, boom. This place forbade the air and cultivation base. Thus, those experts who had come out of the void fell from the sky, crashing on the bronze platform. Swish! The group of experts jerked their heads up, their sharp eyes falling on Bufang and Aobai. Chapter 876. This expert who had appeared out of nowhere was beyond Aobai's estimation. It was supposed to be a one-on-one battle. Why did he call more people? Moreover, he had called so many people at once. Did he think that he could bully this crown prince? Aobai held his two sabers, coldly looking at the crowd of people walking out of the cracks in the formation. As soon as this group of people appeared, they fell from the sky and landed on the ground, causing the ground to tremble. "Sir, I found him. I found the strongest demon king." The demon scorpion man was so excited, talking to the 7 people who had just landed. The leader of the group looked at the demon scorpion man, giving him a nod. They ignored Bufang and Aobai, walking directly to the expert kneeling in front of the bronze palace. Buzz, however, when they were several meters away from that expert, they felt a terrifying wave of energy diffuse. That wave made them shiver, and they couldn't help but want to kneel down. This feeling, the leader of the expert's mouth shivered. "It's true. It's true. It's the strongest demon king in the legends." Like a sword light tearing the sky, the leader lifted his head, his cold eyes looking at Bufang and Aobai. "We can't let anyone else know about this. These two must die," the leader of the experts said coldly. They had attacked the hidden dragon continent for the strongest demon king and the thing he had been pursuing that year. And now, everything seemed to be revealed. As long as they waited for the other demon kings to come, they would know everything. They would have a chance to finish what the strongest demon king couldn't do that year. Before that, they had to make sure that this news wasn't leaked. Therefore, these two fellows must die. An expert with bulging muscles walked out of the crowd, walking toward Bufang and Aobai. Crack, crack, the expert cracked his neck, a cold and playful look in his eyes. Here, flying and cultivation were forbidden, so those with strong bodies were even more popular. They were all heavenly ethereal realm experts with strong bodies. A human, a member of the sea race. Jia, I will soon twist your heads off. That expert's muscles were trembling. In the next instant, he stomped on the ground. His figure suddenly surged forward like a giant primitive beast. Aobai's pupils constricted. His figure flashed, and 2 long sabers slashed out horizontally towards that expert. However, the burly man was too fast. With a palm strike, he sent Aobai's long knife flying. A moment later, a punch was launched. Aobai's face changed. He couldn't resist, and he was blown away. Facing a heavenly ethereal realm expert, even without his true energy, Aobai was still crushed. "The Oceanids are really weak," the demon scorpion expert sneered. His figure stepped out, appearing in front of Aobai in a blink of an eye. He raised his hand and grabbed Aobai's head, trying to twist it off his head. However, just as he was about to make his move, a gust of wind suddenly appeared. This gust of wind didn't come fast. The demon scorpion expert had enough time to react. Human? I haven't come to find you, and you want to die? The demon scorpion expert said coldly. He swung his hand, flipping his hand to hit the human who was attacking him from behind. However, a punch came out. There was a loud thud. The demon scorpion race's burly man's eyes instantly shrank because he felt a huge force acting on his palm. How could it be so tough? The demon scorpion expert took in a breath of cold air. He turned around, seeing a massive black wok. His punch just now had landed on the black wok, but it was a pity that it did not leave any fist mark on the black wok. Quite the contrary, his fist hurt from the vibration. How could it be? How could this wok be so tough? Why do you always want to fight and kill? Bufang indifferently looked at the demon scorpion expert. The black and white bandage on his hand scattered. Instantly, bestial roars arose. Then, the wounded muscles on his arm bulged. Holding the black turtle constellation wok, he pounded again. Boom! That burly man was instantly smashed into a daze. His entire body was sent flying, and he fell heavily into the distance. How could it be? The demon scorpion expert was enraged, roaring. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, a black wok came. Boom! The sound of bones shattering rang out from his arms. His entire body was sent flying, crashing into the distance. Aobai was petrified. Lying on the ground, Aobai was dumbstruck. There was even fear in his eyes. What the heck? That human? How could he be so strong? He had smashed the heavenly ethereal realm expert of the demon scorpion race with just one wok. Although the heavenly ethereal realm expert couldn't use nether energy, his body power wasn't something that human could compare to. A human at the divine soul realm with a one-step soul ladder had beaten up a heavenly ethereal realm creature? The surrounding experts of the ruined prison were also slightly stunned. All of them opened their mouths, feeling a trace of disbelief. They didn't think that Bufang would be that strong. The expert on the ground coughed blood. Both of his arms were broken, and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He crawled up from the ground, roaring one more time. However, before he could finish his roar, Bufang's wok came, pressing the demon scorpion expert on the ground. Black and white lights emerged on Bufang's arms. Bestial roars echoed unceasingly. The black and white Taotai arms had made Bufang's power reach a terrifying level. Adding the weight of the black turtle constellation wok, it was easy to smash a heavenly ethereal realm expert who didn't have any nether energy. You three go together. Capture that human for me. Kill him directly. The leader narrowed his eyes and said coldly. A moment later, the three heavenly ethereal realm experts stepped out, dashing toward Bufang. Swish! The barbed tails stood up one after another. A moment later, they dashed like lightning, appearing by Bufang in just a blink of an eye. The three of them surrounded Bufang in the middle of the field. Their eyes were cold. The first heavenly ethereal realm expert's arms were broken, and his head was smashed. The three of them didn't dare to underestimate him. That human was a little strange. They roared and attacked. The three heavenly ethereal realm experts attacked Bufang at the same time. They wanted to kill Bufang. However, shortly after, they were all petrified, because Bufang had raised the black turtle constellation wok, clashing with their attack. Miserable screams echoed unceasingly. The heavenly ethereal realm experts were blown away by Bufang's wok, falling far away. Each heavenly ethereal realm expert who was hit by the black turtle constellation wok had a broken arm. The heavenly ethereal realm experts of the demon scorpion race looked at Bufang, their eyes filled with fear. That human was so strong. That wok was even more terrifying. In terms of physical power, they weren't weaker than Bufang. However, in terms of pure power, Bufang with his Taotai arm wasn't something they could compare to. In their eyes, Bufang's cultivation base wasn't their match. However, Bufang's power made them despair. Aobai was dumbstruck. In his eyes, Bufang was a weak chicken. But now, he was so strong. He was like a beast in human form. Wielding the wok, he had broken the arms of the heavenly ethereal realm expert. That human wanted to ascend to the sky. He had tried his best to protect him. He didn't expect that the other was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. That wok could totally crush him. The leader didn't expect Bufang to be that strong. A moment later, he didn't dare to be careless. The others also took action. Instantly, the 7 heavenly ethereal realm experts dashed toward Bufang. Boom! Their feet landed, causing the air to spin. The leader was really intimidating. At the heavenly ethereal realm, not many people could resist him. Bufang's black and white Taotai arms held the black turtle constellation Wa. Each time he swung it, he couldn't hit the leader of the demon scorpion race. Rumble! Rumble! The sound of something tearing through the air resounded. Bufang held the black turtle constellation wok with one hand, simply blocking the attack. Each time, his arm would shake. Even Bufang, who always wore an emotionless face, felt his arm go numb. The news about the strongest demon king is really important. We can't expose it. Before we know what the strongest demon king is pursuing, the others who know this news have to die, the leader said coldly. His body shot out one more time. His figure shot out once more, and he threw out a fist, which shook as it smashed toward Bufang. The 7 experts closed in on Bufang as if they wanted to force him into a death trap. Aobai's face paled, his eyes desperate. They didn't have any hope left. He couldn't defeat one of them, let alone 7. Would he, the 3rd crown prince of the Gold Shrimp tribe in the Endless Sea, die here? Bufang took a step back and furrowed his brows. There was a solemn look in his eyes. His hand shook, and the black turtle constellation wok was retrieved. A moment later, a gold light flashed. A gold dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. A resonant dragon roar arose from the dragon bone kitchen knife in Bufang's hand. Dragon might descended, covering everything in just a blink of an eye. A wave of heavy pressure enveloped the area. Many heavenly ethereal realm experts widened their eyes, their minds shivering. A gust of wind blew, causing Bufang's hair to flutter in all directions. A bestial roar reverberated from the Taotai arm as the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. Bufang exhaled, his body shooting forward. Holding the dragon bone kitchen knife, he dashed toward the 7 experts. In the distance, when a figure shrouded in a black cloak saw the dragon bone kitchen knife in Bufang's hand, his eyes shrank in fear and disbelief. The figure shrouded in the black cloak shivered. This aura, this kitchen knife's aura, does it come from the palace? The black-cloaked man said, shivering. 1 slash, 2 slashes, 3 slashes. The 7 heavenly ethereal realm experts were defeated. They couldn't use their true energy, so they couldn't beat Bufang with only their physical strength. Among the 7, some of them were slashed and fell to the ground, their blood splashing. Bufang held the dragon bone kitchen knife, his eyes indifferent. His eyes scanned the entire area. The 7 heavenly ethereal realm experts of the demon scorpion race were frightened. They thought that the human was just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Unexpectedly, he was a tiger bearing its claws and fangs. This human, was he on drugs? All of a sudden, the 7 demon scorpion experts had goosebumps all over their bodies. They felt an extreme sense of crisis. A black shadow shot over at high speed. In just a blink of an eye, it appeared in front of them. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 7 heavenly ethereal realm experts gawked. Then, their heads were sent flying. A figure wrapped in a black robe stood quietly among the 7 figures. 7 heads flew into the air. Chapter 877. 7 heads flew into the air, and blood gushed out of them. Thud, 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 thud. As blood gushed, those big heads fell to the ground, making deep, muffled sounds. Aobai looked at the scene in fright. His hands, which were holding the 2 knives, couldn't help but shiver. His face was filled with fear. Those were 7 heavenly ethereal realm existences. How could their heads be chopped off in just a blink of an eye? What kind of terrifying existence was this black-cloaked man who had just appeared? How could this palace have such a terrifying existence? The demon scorpion man who was the first one was shivering. He was scared out of his wits. 7 heavenly ethereal realm experts had been killed in just a blink of an eye. It was a big shock to him. They were heavenly ethereal realm experts, not great ethereal realm experts. Each heavenly ethereal realm expert was highly respected in the demon scorpion race. However, in just a blink of an eye, 7 demon scorpion experts had their heads chopped off. Buzz, although the heads of the 7 demon scorpion experts were chopped off, as they were at the heavenly ethereal realm, their remnant souls weren't that easy to shatter. They twisted and flew out of their bodies. Their remnant souls were also filled with shock and anger as they let out furious roars one after another. The black and white Taotais on Bufang's arms roared at the same time. Their roars seemed to create a storm, attacking the 7 remnant souls hovering in the air. They wanted to absorb all of them. The black-cloaked expert didn't stop Bufang, nor did he stop the black and white Taotais from absorbing the remnant souls. However, his scarlet eyes had a gleam of interest. "Kid, show me the kitchen knife in your hand." A hoarse voice arose, as if he hadn't spoken for a long time. The black-cloaked expert gazed at Bufang, speaking with a fanatical tone. Bufang's Taotai arm had absorbed the 7 remnant souls. Bufang could feel an extremely terrifying energy. His physical power seemed to increase a lot in just a blink of an eye. However, at this moment, Bufang didn't care about that. It was the black-cloaked expert who had killed the 7 heavenly ethereal realm experts with just one strike. The other wanted to see the dragon bone kitchen knife in his hand. No. Bufang refused expressionlessly. This was his god of cooking set. The scarlet light in the black-robed expert's eyes intensified. "You dare to refuse me? Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" the black-robed expert said coldly. He took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Bufang. A terrifying pressure burst forth from his body, as if he wanted to make Bufang surrender at this moment. Unfortunately, with the system, Bufang didn't feel any pressure at all. Aobai, standing by Bufang, was so scared that his legs went soft. He fell to the ground. The pressure of the divine spirit realm. Even though he was unable to use his cultivation base in front of the bronze palace, the oppressive might that burst forth from his physical body was still very intimidating. The cultivation of this black-robed expert in front of him was definitely at the divine spirit realm, and not just any ordinary divine spirit realm expert. "Kill me? Why don't you come?" Bufang said casually, his face calm. He didn't look worried at all. The black-robed expert gazed at Bufang. "Do you know how many years I've been here? I'm more familiar with this place than you are. If I want to kill you, you can't stop me. Aren't you afraid of death?" The black-robed expert was a threat. Bufang just shook his head. "You can't kill me, and you won't kill me." Aobai's face paled in fear. How could this human not be afraid of death? Where did he get the confidence that the black-robed expert wouldn't kill him? However, it was beyond Aobai's estimation. The black-robed expert gazed at Bufang for a while before laughing loudly. His hoarse voice lingered in front of the palace. A moment later, the black-robed expert lifted his cloak, revealing an old, bony face. His withered white hair fluttered on top of his head. "Kid, look at you. You're a chef, right? Do you know who I am?" The old man gazed at Bufang, asking. "I don't know." Bufang shook his head. He felt that this old man was a little strange. Why did he ask such a question? Did he need to know who this old man was? The old man rolled his eyes. He didn't expect that the kid in front of him didn't know what he meant. I'm the first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony. The one who built the Valley of Gluttony. I'm Lu Mabai. The old man said. The first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony? Bufang was bewildered. This identity wasn't ordinary at all. Anyway, it didn't matter to him. You're awesome, Bufang said emotionlessly after being bewildered for a while. The old man's eyes almost popped out. As a chef, shouldn't he be shocked when he heard his name? So, kid, show me your kitchen knife, Lu Mabai said. The aura of Bufang's kitchen knife made Lu Mabai shiver. He had stayed in front of the bronze palace for a long time, so of course, he knew the aura of the palace. That kitchen knife had the aura of the bronze palace. He had been searching for a way to enter the palace. After so many years, he finally had some clues. Kitchen knife? No. Bufang shook his head, refusing again. Buzz with a thought, the dragon bone kitchen knife turned into a jet of gold light, disappearing from Bufang's hand. Lu Mabai was so mad. Why was this kid so stubborn? However, he didn't dare to act rashly. The bronze palace was really mysterious, and it had secrets that transcended this world. He didn't dare to make any mistakes. He was the first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony. That year, he was so talented that he could suppress the saint sovereigns of the hidden dragon continent's 7 great sage lands. He was the top expert of the hidden dragon continent. However, when he was at his peak, he had wandered around the continent to find opportunities to transcend and reach the peak of cooking. Only when one's competence had reached a certain level would he know that the hidden dragon continent was a massive cage that confined the people of this world. Lu Mabai wanted to transcend. That was why he had been trapped in this bronze palace for several thousand years. From the peak of his youth, he had become an old man. His heart was filled with bitterness. It had been a long wait for him to get a wisp of the bronze palace's aura and hope. The old man became cautious. The man kneeling in front of the bronze palace. He also wants to transcend. He's the same as me. However, before I came here, he was already kneeling here. The old man didn't force Bufang. Instead, he told Bufang everything here. According to my speculation, this man should be the strongest demon king among the 9 great demon kings of the ruin prison, said the old man. What about the bowl of yang chun noodles in the palace? Asked Bufang. Yang chun noodles? That dish is called yang chun noodles? Kid, you do have some secret related to the bronze palace. The old man gawked. He took a deep breath and said, This old man has studied for 1,000 years to figure out the name of this dish, yang chun noodles. But you recognized it with just a glance. Comparing people. It's really irritating. Studied for 1,000 years. Yeah, how long has this dish been here? Bufang took in a breath of cold air. According to my calculation, this dish has been here for, at least 10,000 years, said the old man. He clasped his hands, slowly walking to the front of the palace. He stretched out his old and withered hand and gently stroked the bronze door. Buzz, the bronze door instantly rippled, and the old man's arm reached into it. His hand glided across the bowl of noodles, but it was like the reflection of the moon in the water, shattering it. He could see it, but he couldn't eat it. When this old man came here, I discovered this bowl of noodles. This aroma has lasted for 10,000 years. If this old man can study this bowl of noodles thoroughly, then this old man's culinary skills will reach another level, said the old man. Kowtowing in the Demon King's palace is for the noodles that have been here for 10,000 years. When Aobai and Bufang heard that, they felt chills run down their spines. From the surface, it was just like what the old man had said. The strongest demon king knelt and kowtowed to ask for transcendence. He got a bowl of noodles, but he could see it, but he couldn't eat it. Bufang kept silent. He turned his head to look at the depths of the palace. What was in that palace? Kid, do you know that the aura of the kitchen knife in your hand is the same as the aura in this palace? Said the old man, his eyes wild. How could Bufang know that his kitchen knife was part of the god of cooking set, the god of cooking set that belonged to him? What did it have to do with this palace? Give me the kitchen knife. Then, I can solve the secret of this palace. The old man's body flashed, appearing by Bufang. His dry hand pressed on Bufang's shoulder. His breathing became hurried. Take your hand off me, Bufang furrowed his brows. No. I can't wait any more. Give me the kitchen knife, said the old man. A moment later, his palm aimed at Bufang. As hope was right in front of him, the old man couldn't control his desire anymore. Roar! The black and white Taoya's arms shot out, clashing with the old man's palm. An invisible wave of air spread out. Bufang had to take several steps backward. Boom! The old man's white hair fluttered, his eyes glaring. Black and white Taotai. That year, I killed one and sealed the other. I didn't think that these two beasts would fuse with your arm, said the old man. Black and white energy moved on Bufang's arm. His terrifying energy was slowly moving. All of a sudden, an explosion arose from a far distance. On the pitch-black ancient ship, a purple figure shot out rapidly. His purple hair fluttered in the wind. Amethyst Elder's figure dashed from the chain. With every step, the chain shook violently. After an explosion, Amethyst Elder leaped from the bronze stairs, crashing on the ground. Amethyst Elder lifted his head, his sharp eyes raking through the entire area. Eventually, his gaze landed on the figure kneeling in front of the bronze palace. The corners of his mouth curled, revealing a crazy smile. Finally, found you! Rumble! Rumble! After a crushing battle, the area outside the Light Wind Empire's capital had become a mess. The experts of the demon scorpion race were completely annihilated, all of them crushed. Xiaopi returned to her petite form, lying on Yu's shoulder. Everybody on the Light Wind Empire's city wall was dumbstruck and numb. Xiaopi, who had turned into a giant beast that could cover the sky, was really scary. As the spectators, they were all scared out of their wits. However, no matter what, the Light Wind Empire's capital had survived this crisis one more time. Swoosh! Xiaopi soared, circling around Yu's body, squeaking. Yu was bewildered. Then, she nodded coldly. Understood. Little sister will take you there now. Buzz! The netherworld ship tore through the void. Nethery's figure landed on it. The next moment, she tore the void and sped away. Illusory spirit swamp, inside the big pit. The void was torn apart. The entire netherworld ship dashed out. Lava was rolling in the sky and the ground was dry. You stood on the bow of the netherworld ship with Xiaopi on her shoulder. As soon as they arrived in this world, Xiaopi became energetic. With a swoosh, she turned into a jet of gold light, dashing toward the bronze palace. Chapter 878. The massive space under the crater could be considered a secret realm. The netherworld ship had a special feature, which was that it could travel through any secret realm. Thus, this was one of the reasons why Xiaopi wanted to find you. You could reach the secret realm as fast as possible. Yu was also a little surprised about this secret realm. If it weren't for Xiaopi, she wouldn't have known that there was a secret realm here. As a cursed netherworld woman who had been banished to a secret realm, she had visited all kinds of secret realms, big and small. However, she had never been to this secret realm before. Now, as soon as she entered this secret realm, she didn't know why her heart was trembling. Xiaopi turned into a jet of gold light, dashing away. His speed was really fast, and in just a blink of an eye, he disappeared. Naturally, Yu followed him. The netherworld ship crossed the sky, its speed extremely fast. Shortly, it charged out of the dry area, arriving at a massive valley. All of a sudden, boom! A loud explosion resounded. The netherworld ship lost its ability to fly, crashing down from the sky. A deep crater was created on the ground. Smoke and dust billowed. You got out of the netherworld ship. This place actually forbade the sky, looking at Xiaopi, who had turned into a jet of gold light, dashing away. Yu's emotionless face twitched. Where was the sky forbidding the sky? Serpent Men's city in the tranquil room, one could only hear the sound of slow breathing. And Ai Yen was lying on the bed, breathing in and out quietly. Her white skin seemed to have a radiance blooming. As she inhaled and exhaled, bits of star energy spread out. The room was quickly covered by a sea of starlight. She seemed to have turned into a dazzling star, blooming with light. Amethyst Elder's appearance attracted everyone's attention. The first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony, Lu Mabai, turned his head to look. He clasped his hands, his dry white hair fluttering in the wind. Bufang also saw Amethyst Elder, furrowing his brows. Finally found it. Amethyst Elder grinned, revealing a look of excitement. His gaze landed on the huge figure kneeling in front of the palace. It was the body of the strongest demon king. Amethyst Elder slowly took a step forward. Nether energy rose from his arm, turning into black smoke that wrapped around his arm. Amethyst Elder? That kid from the heavenly spring Holy Land? When the old man saw Amethyst Elder, he frowned and revealed a doubtful expression. When he saw the nether energy on Amethyst Elder's arm, his eyes narrowed. You have actually joined the Ruin Prison's group of demons. Amethyst Elder narrowed his eyes and glanced at the old man. He did not seem to recognize him at first glance. Suddenly, Amethyst Elder narrowed his eyes. The first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony? The corners of the Elder's mouth twitched and he finally revealed a smile. Sure enough, there were still people who knew what was good for them. Not everyone was like that kid who failed to recognize Mount Tai. That's right, it's me. The old man clasped his hands, standing proudly. The Taotia's soul on Bufang's arm roared angrily. He looked at Amethyst Elder and then at the old man, feeling that this was going to be tricky. You're not dead. Amethyst Elder gazed at the old man, saying, the peerless genius from that year had not fallen yet. He had lived until now. Although he was past his prime, the pressure from his body still frightened him. I haven't found the transcendence. How could I die like this? The old man's eyes widened, showing his unwillingness. He had spent his youth to find the transcendence. He had exhausted his whole life to find it. Today, he was about to find the path. How could he give up like this? Transcendence. Even the saint sovereigns of the Holy Lands can't find the path. Why do we need to find it? Amethyst Elder said. You know nothing. Those saint sovereigns know nothing. That year I suppressed them. They weren't qualified to talk to me about transcendence. The old man seemed a little agitated. He turned his head, his eyes falling on Bufang. Today I've found the path. I'm about to step on the path of transcendence. Using the cooking path to transcend, no one can stop my rise. The old man was so excited that his breathing became heavy. This kid is my hope of transcendence. The old man raised his hand, pointing at Bufang. Bufang narrowed his eyes. Light flashed in his hand, and the black turtle constellation Wok emerged. Buzz, the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. The appearance of the two god of cooking sets made the old man's eyes shrink. He was so excited that he almost roared. His eyes were filled with envy and jealousy. Another one. Another one. Let this old man take a look. Boom. The old man's feet stomped on the ground, and his body shot out as fast as lightning. Then, he sent a palm toward Bufang. Bufang's arm, which was holding the black turtle constellation Wok, moved. A moment later, he wielded the Wok, smashing it at the old man. Boom. Waves of air rolled. Bufang felt a tremendous force coming from the black turtle constellation Wok. His entire body was shaken. The old man followed him like a shadow. The dragon bone kitchen knife in his hand twirled, slashing the overlord 13 blades. The knife light was as fast as lightning. However, the old man's figure was moving rapidly, and he easily dodged the blade light. I've stayed in this world for several thousand years. Talking about fighting. Even 10 saint sovereigns aren't my match. You're just a little chef. Obediently surrender. The old man's palm came one more time. With a bang, Bufang was once again sent flying. His figure flipped and landed on the ground. He gently exhaled a breath of air. Bufang had the Taotai arm, but it was just brute force. He couldn't hurt the old man, which made him frown. Amethyst Elder raised his arm. The demon eye in his palm opened, looking excited. It's the strongest demon king. I finally found him. The demon eye's voice was a little hoarse. I think he's dead, said Amethyst Elder, frowning. Dead? It's good that he's dead. It's hard if the strongest demon king isn't dead. Dead is a treasure. This demon king will have a chance to occupy his body. That's the body of a demon king who dares to challenge the Earth Prison's peak sovereign. The demon eye in Amethyst Elder's palm spoke in a hoarse voice, sounding excited. Amethyst Elder's eyes shrank. A moment later, the eye in his palm shot out a jet of black light, entangling the strongest demon king's body. Wisps of black light seeped into the strongest demon king's body. Go help that old man capture that kid. That kid has the secret to open the Bronze Palace. After shooting out a jet of black light, the demon eye seemed to be a little weak as it spoke in a hoarse voice. Amethyst Elder's face was cold. After hearing the demon eye, his eyes shrank. This Bronze Palace was really mysterious. It seemed to have a big secret. That kid had the secret to open the Bronze Palace? No wonder the first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony had said that he had the path to transcendence. It turned out that the path was with that kid. Amethyst Elder opened his mouth, exhaling. His energy was like a long sword, tearing the air. His fleshly body was extremely tough. With a move of his body, he charged toward Bufang's location. Boom! The old man's palm made Bufang take several steps back. That old man wasn't weak. Each time, he clashed with Bufang. Although Bufang had the Taotai arm to increase his power, he wasn't the old man's match. Amethyst Elder's participation made Bufang feel a lot of pressure. The old man's goal was to take the dragon bone kitchen knife from Bufang's hand. However, Bufang had the Black Turtle Constellation Walk and the Taotai arm. The old man couldn't take him down in a short time. However, with Amethyst Elder's participation, the old man increased his pressure. The old man's palm and punch could explode the air. He could even create a powerful air cannon that could explode the ground. This was the performance of the extreme power of his body. Bufang's face was expressionless. The vermilion robe on his body fluttered. He felt a little sullen in his heart. Being continuously pressured by these two people, Bufang also felt a surge of anger in his heart. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? Bufang said coldly. Suddenly, Bufang took several steps back, standing still. His mind flickered, and instantly, several steaming hot dishes flew out of the system-dimensional bag. Numerous dishes floated around his body. Spirit energy rose from them, entering Bufang's body. The old man's eyes instantly shrank. What was this little chef doing? Using food to set up an array. Why didn't this kid go to heaven? The gourmet array was formed. Bufang held a bowl of noodles in his hand. With a slurping sound, under the old man and Amethyst Elder's gaze, he finished it. After a bowl of rampage ramen entered his stomach, Bufang felt his power burst out one more time. With the addition of the gourmet array, Bufang's fighting prowess had increased a lot. Holding the Black Turtle Constellation Walk in one hand, Bufang coldly looked at the old man from the Valley of Gluttony. You want to take my kitchen knife? Eat my wok first, Bufang said, his face emotionless. A moment later, he exerted force in his arm, and the Black Turtle Constellation Walk flew out. Swish! The Black Turtle Constellation Walk seemed to tear the void, flying toward the old man at lightning speed. using food to set up an array. The old man seemed to have an epiphany. He was immersed in the mysteries of the gourmet array. As the first valley master of the Valley of Gluttony, his cooking skills were really excellent. Moreover, his path of transcendence was the cooking path. Therefore, he was obsessed with the study of cooking. However, he had never thought about something like the gourmet array. Was it something from the Bronze Palace? This kid was definitely related to the Bronze Palace. Facing the Black Turtle constellation walk, the old man screeched, his white, dry hair fluttering. He punched the Black Turtle constellation walk. Boom. However, this time, his body stiffened. The power contained in the walk completely exceeded the scope of what the old man could withstand. The old man spat out a mouthful of blood as he tumbled to the side. What was going on? Amethyst Elder was a little bewildered. In the next moment, Bufang's figure had already appeared beside him. With a black wok in his hand, Bufang smashed it down with a loud sound. He raised his hand to resist. Boom. However, he was unable to block the enormous force. The black wok smashed into his head, almost smashing his head into pieces. Just like the old man, he was also sent flying like a cannonball. He had almost fallen into the blood lake. Aobai was dumbstruck. He found that this human had changed his view of the world. He was just a weak chicken. How could he become so strong? Why didn't he ascend to the sky? The old man stood up, coughing blood. However, he was so excited that he laughed. He was sure that the path of transcendence had something to do with this human. Little chef, you can't escape from my palm, heart. The old man laughed. However, his laughter hadn't stopped yet. A moment later, a jet of gold light shot over from a far distance. It was so fast. As the old man laughed, he was hit by the golden light and fell to the ground with a bang. Bufang was bewildered. Aobai was bewildered. Amethyst Elder, who had just crawled up from the ground, was also bewildered. Swish! The gold light floated in the air. When the light dissipated, a tiny golden mantis shrimp appeared. Looking at the shrimp, Aobai's jaw dropped. Aobai's jaw dropped. Am I seeing AF * King Ghost? Chapter 879. A jet of gold light emerged. When the light dispersed, a small gold shrimp was revealed. Its compound eyes rolled, falling on Bufang. Swish! It dashed through the air, dashing to Bufang's side. Then, it landed on Bufang's shoulder. Hey kid, why are you here? Bufang was skeptical. He raised his hand, rubbing Xiaopi's head. Xiaopi didn't say anything, just blowing bubbles from his mouth. In the distance, Nethery's figure also came on the chain, appearing in front of the Bronze Palace. She also saw Bufang. Her face was emotionless as she nodded to Bufang. You're here too? Seems like you brought Xiaopi here. Anyway, what are they doing here? The doubt in Bufang's heart grew heavier. However, Bufang was also skeptical about one thing. This place was forbidden to fly. How could Xiaopi fly? Moreover, he could fly so easily. Was it true that the flying restriction didn't work on Xiaopi? Why didn't it work? Aobai blankly looked at the shrimp ancestor, who was lying on Bufang's shoulder intimately. The expression on his face became even stranger. That was the shrimp ancestor, not your pet. In the endless sea, the shrimp ancestor had a noble status. How could it become a human's pet? The shrimp ancestor was Aobai's grandfather. The old man crawled up from the ground, his face still ferocious. He gazed at Xiaopi, his face solemn. This bronze palace forbade flying. How could this shrimp fly? The old man took a deep breath. All of a sudden, his eyes shrank. Xiaopi flew up from Bufang's shoulder, heading toward the bronze palace. Then it entered the bronze palace. It landed in front of the bowl of steaming hot and fragrant yang chun noodles. Xiaopi circled around the yang chun noodles once, then leaped high into the air. He pulled out a strand of sparkling and translucent noodles from the bowl and began to eat it. Bufang was stunned. The old man was stunned. Everyone was stunned. That bowl of noodles, wasn't it impossible for anyone to eat it? Why could this shrimp do it? What was going on? Being able to fly around the Bronze Palace and enter the Bronze Palace. This golden shrimpy is so mysterious. After the old man recovered from his shock, he immediately let out an excited laugh. Xiaopi eating the noodles proved that the bowl of noodles that had existed for 10,000 years was real. It wasn't an illusion. That meant that he had chosen the right path. Transcendence existed within the palace. He wanted to eat noodles. He wanted to transcend. The old man scrambled toward the Bronze Palace. Soon, he arrived at the palace's entrance. He stretched out his hand, but it was still like the moon in the water. He could not touch the bowl of noodles behind the door. Why? Why is it like this? The old man was enraged. Nether energy twirled around the body of the strongest demon king, who was kneeling in front of the Bronze Palace. A moment later, his body, which was shrouded in nether energy, shivered. Amethyst Elder raised his hand. The demon eye in his palm was filled with excitement. Soon, he would occupy the body of the strongest demon king. As long as he could occupy that body, the demon king of the Demon Eye clan could shake the entire Ruin Prison and even invade Earth Prison. All of a sudden, the demon eye in Amethyst Elder's palm shivered. The eyeball moved and black blood oozed from it. The demon eye let out a miserable howl, as though it had seen something horrifying. Its eyes were filled with terror. No. Impossible. Why hasn't your spirit sea dried up yet? There was a loud bang. Amethyst Elder's body stiffened. He found that the demon eye in his palm had exploded. Pitch-black blood flowed out from the wound. Amethyst Elder's face paled. Boom. Boom. Nether energy shot out, filling the sky. The strongest demon king, who was kneeling on the ground, shivered. In the next instant, a loud explosion resounded. The strongest demon king's figure moved. The old man, who was kneeling in front of the bronze door, stiffened. Then, he stood up and looked over in disbelief. Buzz, a terrifying aura spread out, as though it wanted to tear the sky apart. The kneeling figure raised his head. His eyes were cold and indifferent. 10,000 years. Is it up? His voice resounded in the air, causing everyone's heart to tremble. In the next instant, the strongest demon king slowly climbed up from the ground. His 3-meter-tall body gave people an oppressive feeling. The strongest demon king's eyes scanned the surroundings. Oh, it's quite lively here, the strongest demon king said. The strongest demon king said. In the next instant, his gaze landed on Nethery, who was in the distance. Netherworld woman? You nodded expressionlessly. She was neither servile nor overbearing. The strongest demon king nodded, not saying anything. He started to breathe. Nether energy gushed out from his mouth and nose, and the blood in his body roared like a dragon. The former strongest expert of the Ruin Prison seemed to have finally awakened. Xiaopi was still slurping his Yang Chun noodles. That strand of noodles was chewed by him unceasingly. Soon, the bowl of noodles was emptied. In the next instant, Xiaopi looked as though he was drunk. He swayed as he crawled on the ground. Then, with a smacking sound, he fell to the ground and slept soundly. This shrimp was drunk by a bowl of noodles. Boom! The strongest demon king's eyes instantly widened. The noodles were eaten? An ear-splitting voice resounded. Everyone's heart tightened. Bufang furrowed his brows. The black turtle constellation walk was in his hand. If the situation wasn't right, he would immediately take it out. Boom! Boom! The demon king's giant figure strode forward. In 2 steps, he arrived in front of the bronze palace. He looked at the bowl of noodles that had been eaten, and his eyes revealed a look of surprise. That's right. It was a look of surprise. Everyone was bewildered. That bowl of noodles had been eaten. Why would the demon king reveal a look of surprise? Wasn't that the bowl of noodles he had been kneeling for 10,000 years? Roar. A roar reverberated, and it seemed as though it could shatter the sky. Even the magma in the sky was boiling. Then, under everybody's gazes, the Demon King's hands patted the bronze palace's gate. This time, the palace's gate didn't vanish like the moon reflected in the water. Instead, it became solid. The Demon King's hand supported the gate, and his eyes sparkled with joy. A bowl of noodles had trapped him for 10,000 years. And now the noodles were eaten. It was time for him to open the path of transcendence. Give it to me. Open. The Demon King roared. His blood and energy surged like a dragon, surging like terrifying waves. Crunch, crunch. It sounded like an ancient sound. The bronze palace's gate hadn't been opened for a long time. The creaking sound resounded in everyone's ears, causing goosebumps to appear on their bodies. The Valley of Gluttony's Valley Master, Lu Mabai, looked excited. He understood it now. He understood everything. To transcend, the strongest Demon King had asked for a bowl of noodles. After eating that bowl of noodles, the path of transcendence would open. However, the noodles behind the gate were like the moon reflected in the water. They couldn't eat it. If it wasn't eaten, the bronze palace wouldn't open. The strongest Demon King couldn't eat it, so he had to kneel here and wait for 10,000 years. Finally, the noodles were eaten. The gate of transcendence was finally opened. The squeaking sound echoed unceasingly, echoing through the sky and the entire hidden dragon continent. Tautai Restaurant, Valley of Gluttony. Lord Dog, who was sleeping soundly in front of the path understanding tree, slowly opened his eyes. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Was it eaten? That thing was eaten? Who ate it? Squinting, Lord Go shook his head, sticking his tongue out. Then, he lay in front of the path understanding tree one more time. Transcendence. It's easier said than done. It's better to eat Bufang's sweet and sour ribs. After a long time, Lord Go snorted, slowly getting up from the ground. Lord Go, I'm just going there to watch the fun. Hades Era clasped his hands, strolling on the snow-covered street. All of a sudden, his ears twitched as if he had heard the ancient squeaking sound. His eyes focused. Interesting. The people from the ruined prison want to ascend to heaven. They want to transcend. Nether King Erha grinned. Then, he stretched out his hand and drew a line in the air, causing the void to tear apart. Pulling the void apart, he entered it. Saint Daughter Ziyun, who had been following Hades' Era, was a little bewildered. Then, she stepped into the space crack. Roar! The bronze gate, which had been closed for a long time, finally opened slowly. The old man's eyes were filled with excitement, and the Demon King's eyes were filled with hope. Boom! Rumble! With a loud bang, the door opened completely. Everyone's heart trembled. The old man from the Valley of Gluttony didn't say anything, dashing toward the gate. The strongest Demon King heaved a sigh of relief as he took a step forward. Amethyst Elder hesitated for a while, then dashed toward the gate. Bufang didn't follow him. Instead, he walked to the gate, grabbing the drunk Xiaopi, placing him on his shoulder. You human, what do you want to do to the shrimp ancestor? Aobai seemed to have gathered his courage, asking Bufang in a trembling voice. The shrimp ancestor. That's the King shrimp ancestor. He was the leader of the gold shrimp tribe. He felt that he had a mission and an obligation to bring the shrimp ancestor back. Bufang held the wok in one hand and the kitchen knife in the other. He tilted his head, indifferently looking at Aobai. The other shivered in fear. This human wasn't a weak chicken. If that wok came, he would become a flat shrimp. The corners of Bufang's mouth twitched. He picked up the porcelain bowl on the floor. The bowl was still warm. It was hard to imagine that it was a bowl of noodles that had been here for 10,000 years. Who had cooked this bowl of noodles? There was still some soup left in the bowl. The soup exuded a faint warm brilliance and was still glowing. It meant that the chef who cooked this dish had good cooking skills. At least, he wasn't weaker than Bufang. He exhaled gently. It seemed like he still had a long way to go to become the god of cooking. He wasn't alone on the road to becoming the god of cooking. Bufang's fighting spirit rose. If he wanted to become the god of cooking who stood at the top of the food chain in this fantasy world, he had to crush everyone else. This was his goal. For this goal, Bufang had to work hard. Putting the bowl down, Bufang retrieved the black turtle constellation wok and the golden dragon bone kitchen knife, dashing toward the bronze palace. Aobai looked at Bufang's back. He gritted his teeth, following him. Chapter 880. The old man was so excited. He was even more excited than the strongest demon king. He had been trapped in this place for several thousand years. Now, he had finally found the hope of transcending. His heart was beating fast. The dry white hair on his head fluttered in the wind as he took large strides and galloped at the front. The gate of the palace opened, and a straight path came into view. The path led to the depths of the palace. That place was pitch black and mysterious. The giant body of the strongest demon king slowly walked on the path. His eyes scanned everywhere. Every time he took a step, the ground shook. As they moved forward, the palace became bigger and bigger. The dome of the palace was really high, and the surroundings were also very spacious. Inside the palace, everything was bronze in color, as if it was completely cast from bronze. Bufang clasped his hands. Xiaopi was lying on his shoulder. Xiaopi was spitting bubbles. That bowl of noodles that had existed for 10,000 years had made Xiaopi drunk. However, Bufang could feel the energy in that mantis shrimp's body boiling fiercely. Bufang stood in the middle of the palace, and Yu followed behind him. Aobai gazed at Bufang from a distance. The strongest demon king also stopped in his tracks. He furrowed his brows as he stood in the center of the great hall. All of a sudden, someone screamed miserably. How could it be? How could it be like this? A pitiful scream echoed. A figure dashed out of the palace, his face crazed. Lumabai was a little crazy. He spun unceasingly at his spot, his eyes filled with reluctance and bewilderment. The entire palace was made of bronze. Where was the transcendence? The so-called transcendence. Where was it? Lumabai's eyes turned ash-gray. The stubbornness in his heart had collapsed. It was enough to make him collapse. The old man sat on the ground, feeling sad. The entire hall was empty, and there was no information about transcendence to be found. The strongest demon king was a little annoyed in his heart. His cold gaze swept over that old man, and hot air spurted out of his nose. "Shut up!" the strongest demon king roared. His voice was like thunder that reverberated throughout the entire palace. In the blink of an eye, the entire palace fell into silence. The old man was badly frightened. He stared at the strongest demon king with a lifeless look on his face. Bufang was puzzled as well. This was the depths of the mysterious palace. There didn't seem to be anything special here. The so-called transcendence, there was no trace of it at all. Could it be that the so-called transcendence was fake? Nethery's pretty eyes were also moving around the room, looking around. Amethyst Elder's hair fluttered in the wind. He raised his hand and glanced at the demonic eye that had lost its luster. No one knew what he was thinking. Transcendence, it's all a lie. I actually spent thousands of years waiting for a scam. Tears rolled down the old man's cheeks. He sat on the ground, sobbing bitterly. He used to be the peerless son of heaven. He had subdued the saint sovereigns of many holy lands. He was the top expert of the hidden dragon continent. He had created the Valley of Gluttony and suppressed many forces, making them not dare to breathe loudly. However, he had spent several years to make himself old. To achieve transcendence that didn't exist, Tui. The old man coughed up a mouthful of blood. The strongest demon king was calm. Although he had spent much more time than Lumabai, he was a netherworld creature. His lifespan was much longer than the old man's. However, he also felt a little regretful. But it shouldn't have happened. There should be transcendence. All of a sudden, the strongest demon king seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes shone with a bright light. A moment later, he took a deep breath, then raised his fist. He ruthlessly smashed his fist against the ground. Boom! His fist pounded. The ground began to shake. The entire bronze palace was shaking. Then, the rumbling sound was ear-splitting. Bufang and the others felt the ground under their feet start to shake. A jade token flew out from Bufang's hand. From outside the palace, more jade tokens turned into streamers of light as they flew in. Several jade tokens fell on the ground, embedding themselves in the ground. Buzz, the bronze floor glowed. A white light twinkled. Then, the floor began to twist and tear. A long bronze staircase appeared, leading deep into the ground. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. The strongest demon king stood up. The muscles on his body bulged, and a radiant light shot out from his eyes. With a loud roar, his figure suddenly dashed out at high speed. A mysterious aura gushed out from the ground. The eyes of the unwilling old man sitting on the ground brightened. He let out a long howl. His eyes were once again filled with hope. His figure rapidly dashed out, and in an instant, he followed behind the strongest demon king, burrowing into the ground. Bufang and the others looked at each other, then they all followed him. Stepping on the bronze staircase, not long after, they reached the bottom. This staircase wasn't long. Soon, they reached the bottom. As soon as they reached the bottom, the scene in front of them changed. Everybody around them disappeared. Another illusion? Bufang's eyes narrowed. This scene was the same as when they crossed the chain. The dazzling light caused Bufang's eyes to involuntarily shrink. In the next instant, everything in front of him became extremely clear. He also clearly saw where he was at this moment. This place was actually a huge kitchen. That's right. It was a kitchen. However, this kitchen was completely different from the kitchens Bufang had seen before. This kitchen was beautifully decorated, and everything seemed to be full of mysteries. In the middle of the kitchen, there was a figure quietly sitting cross-legged. That figure looked very ordinary. He didn't have any energy, just quietly sitting cross-legged. Wisps of faint energy twirled around his body. That white energy was faintly discernible, slowly drifting around that figure. As that energy drifted, every strand of it seemed as though it would cause the void to shatter. At first glance, Bufang's eyes were attracted to that figure. That person should be a chef. He wore a chef's robe and a chef's hat, sitting cross-legged on the ground. On his knees there was an exquisite and sharp kitchen knife. There was a chef in this bronze palace. Moreover, this chef had the air of King Immortal. It wasn't just Bufang. At this moment, everyone saw the chef. They felt as though they had been pulled into a mysterious space. In their eyes, there was only that kitchen and that chef. Was that chef the one who had cooked that bowl of Yangchun noodles that had existed for 10,000 years? Then, transcendence was related to that chef? Everyone's heart shook, and then excitement appeared on their faces. However, shortly after, their faces turned strange. They suddenly realized that even if that chef was related to transcendence, how to get that transcendence was still a problem. The kitchen. What did it have to do with the Transcendence Conference? Bufang clasped his hands, walking around the kitchen. Then, he returned to the chef. There were very few things in this kitchen. The ingredients were also very little, only a spirit beast egg and a bag of rice. Bufang squinted at the chef for a long time. His mind seemed to be working fast. Suddenly, Bufang gave the chef a deep look. He walked to the stove. This stove was luxuriously built, and the materials used were also precious. Bufang raised his hand. The dark gold heaven and earth obsidian flame flew out of his palm. He flicked his finger, and the flame got into the stove. There was a loud bang. The stove suddenly burst into a monstrous flame. Bufang looked around. He didn't pick up the black turtle constellation walk. Instead, He picked up the heavy black wok placed by the stove and placed it on top of it. The heaven and earth obsidian flame burned fiercely, roasting the black wok. The corners of Bu Fang's mouth rose. His hand shook, and he took out a bottle of oil from his system-dimensional bag. The oil splashed, splashing all over the black wok. Sizzle! Sizzle! Under the high temperature, the oil began to boil. Then, with a flick of his hand, Bu Fang took the spirit beast egg that was quietly placed at the side. His fingers moved, and the egg slid continuously in his palm. Eventually, it cracked, falling into a blue and white porcelain bowl. Sizzle! 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 The sound of stir-frying arose, and a thick aroma rolled and surged. Bu Fang's movements were skillful and serious. An egg in a bag of rice. Besides making egg-fried rice, what else could he do? Bu Fang didn't know what that chef wanted. However, when he saw the egg and rice, Bu Fang thought of egg-fried rice. Sizzle! The wok shook. In an instant, a steaming bowl of egg-fried rice was poured into the porcelain bowl. Steam rose, and the egg-fried rice seemed to emit a golden radiance, dazzling and mesmerizing. Bu Fang rubbed his chin, looking at the egg-fried rice. He didn't know why that bowl of Yangchun noodles could be preserved for 10,000 years. Even if it was Bu Fang's egg-fried rice, if it was preserved for more than 7 days, it would become inedible. The strongest demon king gazed at the chef in front of him. There was a look of excitement in his eyes. Indeed, it's you. I finally see you again. After the strongest demon king's excitement appeared, it turned into pure rage. You promised me a chance to transcend and a bowl of noodles, but I can only look at your noodles, but I can't eat them. What do you mean? The demon king's muscles bulged. Step by step, he slowly walked toward that chef. The chef was still sitting cross-legged on the ground. He didn't move, and he didn't reply to the demon king's question. The demon king's eyes moved, gazing at that chef and the white energy moving around him. Then, his eyes showed a look of longing. Is this the immortal energy from the Heaven Chief realm recorded in the ancient books? Is this the key to transcend? His hands were trembling as he slowly reached out to grab the milky white energy gas. Boom! Just as his hand was about to touch that immortal energy, the chef, who had his eyes closed, opened them. The strongest demon king shivered. He felt that the chef was getting further and further away from him. Soon, he was so far away that he couldn't reach him. No. The strongest demon king let out an enraged roar. A moment later, his body was pushed away by a giant force. He flew out of the ground, landing in the bronze palace. He crawled up from the ground. Thick white smoke fumed from his nostrils. However, he found many eyes on him. They were the others who had entered the underground with him. Yu, Aobai, and Amethyst Elder were looking at the Demon King. Their faces were full of sympathy. Bu Fang and the first Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony, Lu Mabai, didn't show up. Did that mean they were eliminated? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.